What is going on, IB Nation? Welcome to another edition of IB Nation Sports Talk. I'm Vince D'Addario, special guest host right there, the big man himself, the boss man, Brian Driscoll. He's here. He's ready. He's giving me a look. He's giving me the look, man. I don't know.
I come on to help you out, to co-host with you, and you got fat jokes right out the gate.
Okay, didn't see that one coming. All right.
Just remember one thing, Vince. I know where you live, and it ain't that far away.
Yeah. And more importantly, you signed the paycheck. So I'm going to go ahead and reserve my judgment. No, I'm just kidding. But, hey, we're happy to have Brian here.
How
Shaun,
we roll, baby.
Shaun is obviously in Durham and at the Cameron Indoor because the women are playing Duke. And so
one of my bucket list items, Vince. I would love to watch a game at Cameron Indoor Stadium.
You let me know when you're going because I'll be stowing away because I've heard that it's a lot like it's more of an intimate feeling than most.
It's a gym. It's a gym.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean it's a gym. Yeah,
yes.
So it's how basketball games are supposed to be watched.
Yes, absolutely. And the fans are just like right on top of you. Like it sounds like an amazing atmosphere, and I love. It's gonna sound corny, but I just love like all the wood, like accents everywhere. I mean, you know exactly where you're at when you see a picture in there. I mean, you know.
Isn't that how Indiana used to be? Or do they still play where they've always played, Indiana?
I believe so.
I've heard their place is a lot like that too. Like it's smaller. It's like a gym.
Yeah.
You know, like they can call it a stadium or a hall or whatever, but it's a gym. You know, and in the truest sense of the word. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's for basketball. So, we're not here to talk hoops, man.
No, at least not yet.
We're here to talk about ballers.
We are. And so, Brian is nice enough to join me today, and we are going to talk about 2025 wide receiver Shaun Terry. He committed over the weekend. To me, the guy who does not follow recruiting, felt like a surprise. It wasn't a name that I knew. I didn't, and this is Vince D'Addario talking, who doesn't follow recruiting very closely. And so I was intrigued as to who Shaun Terry was. How does he fit in with the program and all these things? And guess where I found all my answers, Brian?
Irish Breakdown.
IrishBreakdown.com and the board. That is where I found out all my information. And this looks like a pretty nice little pickup here for Notre Dame. And I believe it also expands their board because there was some talk about, is it going to be 3 wide receivers? Is it going to be 4?
Yeah.
Now it feels like there's going to be 4. We're going to get into that, obviously. But my favorite part when we do these shows, Brian, is talking about the backstory.
Yes.
Where did this commitment come from? Who is this kid? He's from Ohio, I believe. You know, how did he get on the radar, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm lobbing it up to you. Give us the backstory of Shaun Terry, the wide receiver out of Ohio.
Well, this is one of those ones. There was a stretch of kind of after Mike Denbrock was hired and right before he was hired, there was a stretch of just new offers that went out. The guys like Shaun Terry, Lex Cyrus, Nas Newkirk, some different receivers, because it really came down to, Mike Brown getting in here and Mike Denbrock getting in here as a duo and looking to see, okay, what do we have? What does our roster need? Where are we short? Where do we need to kind of improve? Where do we've got to, what skill sets are we lacking? And so Shaun was one of the kids that Notre Dame got in on, and he's had a really impressive offer list. I mean, Notre Dame offered him on the 20th. They went and kind of checked out the school. He had gotten an offer like 2 days before from USC and Arkansas, and he's a kid that already had a Penn State offer. Notre Dame offers him on the 20th. He gets an Oklahoma offer and a Tennessee offer a week later. He gets an Oregon offer. Actually, the same day, he got Notre Dame offered him on the 20th. Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Oregon offered him a week later, same day.
Wow.
And so he was kind of blowing up a little bit, but it was one of those ones that you looked at and said, this was one where Mike Brown and Mike Denbrock looked at the kid and evaluated him. He had a Wisconsin offer. So Mike Brown had already offered him at Wisconsin. So there was that previous knowledge of Shaun as a player. And so they looked and said, look, we need this type of athlete on our film. But even though he had an offer, initially it wasn't, from my understanding, talking to some different sources familiar with this recruitment, it wasn't initially a committable offer.
Okay.
because they loved the film. They thought the kid was a heck of a player, but there were some questions about, and it's the same question that I had, Vince, when we talked about it when the kid first got offered, was what is his top end speed though? I mean, the film is phenomenal, but what's his top end speed? And so Notre Dame basically wanted a way to try to verify that. They have ways to get that done. And so this past week, my understanding is, and it was one of those things where if this kid can show us he's in this range, he's a take because we love the skill set. He verified his 40 time with the staff. And once he did, it was done deal. Let's go. And so what I was told is he got verified like late last week or this weekend, was told, hey, you can jump on board if you want to. And the staff was very open with him about it. Like, look, we love you. This is part of our process. We got to verify for certain things.
Boxes got to be checked, right?
Yeah, we offered you less than a month ago, that kind of thing. As soon as he verified that 40 time, he got the okay to commit if he wanted to, and boom, just like that, it was a done deal. So it was basically, if they gave him the okay, he was coming Notre Dame. That's pretty much how it was. And once he got that okay, it was a done deal. So, the one question they had about him was, okay, can this kid run fast enough to play here? Because, I've seen film, Vince, you've seen film of kids that are excellent high school football players, and they end up coming to play for me at a Division III school or an FCS school. And you say, how could I had a kid that from Ohio that I recruited to Defiance. It was a 5,040 plus touchdown rusher in high school. Great film. But he's a 4.9.
Woo.
So he's going to come play for me.
Right.
He's probably a little faster than that, but you get the point that I'm making.
Sure.
He just didn't have that speed to play at this level. He was a 215, 220-pound running back at 5'10". He was a tank.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have the top end speed. I've coached guys at the Division III level that were phenomenal football players, but instead of being a 4.4 or 4.5, they were 4.7s or 4.8s. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to make sure that he was that. And once he did, it was a done deal. From the minute Notre Dame offered him, Oregon offered a week later, Tennessee offered a week later, and it didn't matter. Like once Notre Dame offered, it was like, okay, that's the team to beat. And then they got the okay. He did come on a visit. And I think it was that one Junior Day weekend.
Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago, or maybe
end of January.
Yeah.
And it was pretty much, if they want me, I'm coming, kind of thing. And the staff did a good job of explaining to Shaun, hey, here's where we're at, and this is just what the process we got to go through to verify certain things. And but it has nothing to do with we love you, we love your film. This is just part of the process.
But I love that, though. I love the openness of the staff to, basically tell them where they're at. Because I can say from experience, that's not always the case. You don't always get the honest, open, you just don't get that from coaches. They'll string you along. They'll, we love you, but, that kind of a thing. And so I do appreciate that Notre Dame, hey, look, here's where we're at. If you can do this, this, and this, then, we're good. Let's go. If not, we wish you all the success in the world. It's very open and honest about what they're looking for and what you've got to do to be that guy. I like that.
Yeah. And he did everything that they needed him to do as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other part of it. I mean, it's a kid is a strong academic kid and all that. I mean, the fit made a lot of sense. So that's the backstory on it. And it was not a situation where let's see how things work with this guy and let's hold off on Shaun until we know where we stand with this player or that player. They loved the film. I mean, as I said, Mike Brown had already evaluated the film to his liking at Wisconsin.
Right.
And then it was just basically, okay, now let's take that next step and see if this is a situation where you're at that Notre Dame level, which is a little bit different than Wisconsin.
Well, and people are, talking in the chat about, okay, well, this guy runs this and he's successful and this guy runs this. Look, there's certain things that top level schools, there's certain boxes that just have to be checked. You've got to differentiate guys and you've got to be able to, it just is what it is.
It's like somebody's talking about Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp's 6'2". Shaun Terry's 5'10".
Right.
I mean, like, look. And the other thing is, some of those guys are the anomalies, right? Most of the guys that are successful at the next level, like Cincinnati, Mike Brown had a guy, Tyler Scott, who was 5'10", 5'11", 170 pounds. He ran a 4.39.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes up for some height and some other things.
Right. But you'd be foolish if you're Notre Dame not to do your due diligence. If a 5'10", 170-pound kid runs a 4.7, you can't take that kid.
Yeah.
Right? If he runs a 4.6, and lower, now you're in a range where the quickness makes up for the lack of top-end speed. Once his speed got verified, it basically put him in the same range as Jordan Faison, which they were like, let's do it.
Clearly that works.
Right.
I mean,
but I don't know a soul that was like, why aren't they giving Jordan Faison a scholarship a year ago either? Let's not act like we all knew Jordan Faison was going to be this stud when he got to Notre Dame. Right.
Right.
But, so that was the backstory. I think it's smart by Notre Dame to do their due diligence, make sure, because it's February. There's no need to rush this. You know what I mean? The kid loved you. You loved the kid. Let's do your due diligence and make sure that this is a kid that you want and you could take. And they did their job, and now he's in the class.
So now that he's in the class, how does because we kind of touched on the 3 or 4, wide receivers in this class, things of that nature. So how does he fit? You compared him to Jordan Faison. How does he fit in this class? And then, onto this team, like, what do they see him as? Is he a slot primarily? Where are they going to move him around? What's it look like?
Well, this is my favorite part. I love the class impact part, right? I mean, that's the fun part of this. And when you look at Shaun Terry, there's 2 aspects of it, Shaun. There's 2 aspects of it, Vince. Number 1 is the positional fit, and then number 2 is the specific skill set that they're looking for. The positional fit's easy. He's a slot guy. Now, are there some looks where he can play outside, like we saw with Jordan Faison, this year, where they ran that post over concept with Jaden Greathouse? They wanted to use Jordan Faison to take the top off the defense, because again, low 4.5 is still fast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And then bring that over to there certainly looks like that you can use him for, Vince, and so. But as far as the primary position, it's that slot position. Sure. It's the position where you're basically using him to be a playmaker in a lot of different ways. You're going to ask him to work the screen game, and you're going to ask him to work the RPO game. Right. You're going to ask him to work over the middle of the field. He's going to be running crossers, over seams, quick outs, bubbles, jet sweeps, reverses. He'll be a guy that you're going to utilize a lot on some jet action, even on smokes where he's not necessarily getting the ball, but you're trying to influence the perimeter of the defense to try to get them to hold. So you can get up inside of them on your inside zone. Yeah. There's a lot of different things that he can do in that regard. And here's the other thing too, Vince, when you look at the positional fit, it's not just receiver that you're recruiting Shaun Terry to play. This kid's also took 5 punts back for touchdowns last year. He's a dynamic punt returner, because the thing I like about him, and we'll get into this more when we watch the film, but he's 5'10", 170 pounds. I've seen people list him at like 175. He's not real big, but his play strength is really impressive. He's got a really strong lower body on top of having excellent balance, which is exactly what you need in a punt returner. And he's got that immediate acceleration. Like, he's not a 4.4 burner, a 4.3 burner, but he's that typical quick kid, Vince. And the thing you and I both know about real quick sudden kids is he may only be a 4.45 or 4.55, but he's a 4.55 step 1. Like, so immediately. If him and Will Fuller sprint 50 yards, Will Fuller's beating him by several steps. Right. If we're talking about the 5 yards, the 5 to 10 yard sprint, Jordan, it wouldn't shock me if Jordan gets off faster and has a better 10-yard split than a guy like Will Fuller, because Will Fuller was one of that build speed up guys. Chase Claypool was a build speed up guy. This kid in Jordan Faison and guys like that he's a 4.55, but Dexter Williams was that way, right? I mean, Dexter Williams could hit a home run just as easily as Josh Adams could. Josh Adams was a full 1/10 of a second faster in the 40-yard dash, and he did that on a bad foot, right? 4.48 to 4.58. But Dex was a 4.58 step 1. He had that immediate burst, and you want that in a punt returner as well. And you have a guy that can make people miss. He's very elusive. You have to have a guy that's tough enough to make people miss. Also, there's 2 types of ways to make people miss. One is to juke them. The other one is, as a punt returner, you got to be able to take contact and stay up. He can do that. Right. And then you've got that acceleration. So this is a kid that brings slot value to the table. This is a kid that brings movement value to the table. This is a kid that, from a positional standpoint, is going to be an RPO fit to what you do. And this is a kid that can be a dynamic punt returner. And then the specifics of who he is as a player is also something that they want, Vince. All those things we talked about, a guy that's dynamic in the screen game, a guy that's a good jet sweep guy, a guy that can do damage over the middle, a guy that can do damage in space, a guy that's elusive after the catch. something that's largely lacking from the Notre Dame roster right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you think Jordan Faison and KK Smith can be that kind of guy, but Jordan Faison wasn't a super make you miss kind of guy this year, a couple times, but it was more so about you could see he has the potential to be that guy. He didn't get a ton of opportunities to show that this year. And so you're projecting a little bit, and then you watch him play lacrosse, and you're like, yeah, he's going to make a lot of people miss, right?
Right.
But the skill set's there from Jordan, and as he gets more opportunities, you saw a little bit in the bowl game. As he gets more opportunities, he's going to be that kind of player. I think KK Smith can be that kind of player, but outside of that, you don't have a lot of that on the table in this type of package, and so he brings a lot of that to the table, and I'm a big fan of needing to add that to the table and to the depth chart. And so that's the thing is like he brings a niche to your offense in ways that like a Hunter Renfrow. Actually, Hunter Renfrow is probably not a great example because he wasn't an after the catch guy. Ahmad Rogers is a name I see used a lot. And if you want a Notre Dame comp, I initially said Jordan Faison, but you know who I see him more resembling as a player? Theo Riddick in 2010 and 2011 as a slot receiver. Stronger, not big, Theo was a 4'6", right? But super elusive, strong kid for his size, could do damage after the catch. Theo was like a 38 catch, 400 some yard guy in his 2 years. I think Shaun has a little bit more juice than Theo did. Like I think Shaun's faster than Theo was. So that's the skill set that I believe that he really brings to the table that Notre Dame needs. And look, if you give me a Theo Riddick type guy with Great House and Cam Williams and Micah Gilbert and Elijah Burris and hopefully like Derek Meadows and Talon, hopefully you bring those guys in too with the tight ends you have. That's something you need in this offense that they honestly haven't had a lot of. And another guy that's a kind of a similar comp to me, Amir Carlisle. Remember how valuable Amir was as that complimentary make you miss kind of guy to Will Fuller and Chris Brown that were the burners. So those are the things that that complementary skill set that people obsess about rankings and all that stuff. It's also about building a skill set,
right?
A depth chart that has. We've complained. Vince, you and I did this show for 2 years before anybody else was on staff, right?
Right.
And so we had a lot of conversations about stuff. And the thing we would always complain about is they don't have enough diversity of skill on this depth chart.
Yes.
Well, this is a guy that changes that. Right? This is a guy that adds something you don't have nearly enough of if you're going to run an RPO-based offense. And they're going to be doing a lot more RPO in this offense. And the route running potential is there. It's not quite there yet. Right now, he's just getting by on being a super athlete.
Right.
Eventually, the route running is going to get better. But that's the thing too, Vince. So slot player, punt returner, and then just bringing a skill set to the table that Notre Dame just simply put wants and needs more of on the depth chart.
Yeah, no, you and I have talked about it a bunch because for a long time they were just getting the big, strong back shoulder guys. Like that was the wide receiver room for so long.
And then when they'd get smaller guys, Vince, it was like, okay, Lorenzo's still an outside guy. Okay, he's not 6'4", but he's still an outside guy.
Right.
Exactly. Braden Lindsey's not a big guy, but he's still an outside guy.
Correct.
They were all outside guys. None of them were after the catch guys. They were do your damage before and after. There was not a lot of different skills. They started getting different body types eventually, but not the different skill sets.
Correct. And this is a clear change in the skill set from what they've been bringing in. There's no question about it. So this is a big time pickup. And again, this is one, in my opinion, where don't get hung up on the stars and all that stuff because it's about fit within the program that you're going to. It's not all about the stars and all of these different things. It's a great fit for Notre Dame. And again, one of the things that you always taught me real early on when you and I first started getting to know each other, and I didn't know anything about recruiting and all this other stuff, and you're like, hey, don't worry about stars. Who is recruiting this kid? What's his offer list? And you went over it a minute ago.
Yeah.
And within the last, 3-4 weeks, his offer list has exploded. There's a reason for that, right?
Let me read it again, Vince.
Yeah.
I'm going to go alphabetical order.
Okay.
Arkansas, Auburn, Boston College, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisville, Michigan, Michigan State, Oklahoma, Oregon, Penn State, Pitt, Tennessee, USC, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, and Wisconsin.
I mean, that kind of You've got all the power conferences accounted for, and
You
multiple
got dynamic
ways.
offenses. You got Oregon in there. You got Tennessee in there.
You got USC.
Right, USC in there. You've got Oregon in there. Penn State offered the young man as well. I mean, so the defending champs offered
Michigan,
this young man. So
right.
Which still just makes me, when I say that. But I mean, the other thing too, Vince, is like I grade the kid. I sound pretty fired up about this kid, right? I gave him a 3.5-star grade, top 350 type of kid. But again, it's about that he's a niche player.
Correct.
That's he's not a higher ranked guy is that guy that can do everything. It's Malik Apers. It's guys, but the niche is really good. Sometimes it's okay to just be really dynamic in a small area, and you're going to add tons of value. They're not bringing him in to be a 90 catch. They're not bringing him in to be 2009 Golden Tate. Now, if he becomes that, sure, okay, great. But you're not bringing him in for that. You're bringing him in to be theoretic.
Right.
And I'm all on board with that.
Sure.
All on board with that because Theo Riddick did not have to be the dude. That was Michael Floyd's job. That was Tyler Eifert's job. But Theo was a really valuable piece to what they were doing. Just like Amir Carlisle in 2015 was a really valuable piece to what they were doing. Hunter Renfrow, a little different skill set, but like it was Justin Ross and T. Higgins and Travis Etienne. But who's the guy that broke open the Notre Dame game in 2018 with the big play? The second big play. Justin Ross had the first one on the tip ball, but that second big play that broke the game open in the second half, it was Hunter Renfrow up the seam.
Right.
That was it. That compliment. Who caught the game-winning touchdown in the 2016 title game? It wasn't Mike Williams, who was the far better player. It was Hunter Renfrow. You need those type of players because what fans tend to get lost on when the people who just focus and obsess on stars, it's about building a roster. Because I'll tell you something else. Who was the best receiver on Georgia's 2022 national championship team? Vince, do you not tight end, best receiver on Georgia's 2022 football team? Do you know the answer to that question?
I do not.
It's Ladd McConkey.
Okay.
Led the second on the team in catches behind Brock Bowers, second on the team in receptions behind Brock Bowers, tied with Brock Bowers for the team lead and touchdowns. You know what Ladd McConkey was ranked coming out of high school?
Was he ranked at all?
Yeah, he was ranked. It wasn't impressive. On three had him ranked as the number 1,146 player in the country, and 247 Sports had him ranked as the number 1,160 player in the country.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, so again, we could do this all day. Right. It's about the niche. So you like the niche, and then if he plays beyond the niche, that's great.
Even better.
If he becomes because like Amari Rodgers to me was a niche guy at Clemson for a lot of his career. Well, Amari Rodgers later in his career at Clemson also became a volume guy. Sometimes that niche guy becomes your dude.
Right, for sure.
Now, I think that was part of Clemson's issue at times in 2020s because they needed Amari Rodgers to be that dude, whereas he was better suited as the complimentary guy. But, you need guys like that too. And as we said earlier, you're also bringing in a kid who has a chance to be a dynamic punt returner. So there's a lot of value. Even though I don't have him ranked as a top 150, it's about building a roster.
Right, exactly.
And this kid brings value beyond just his star ranking because that's what building a roster is all about.
Correct.
And in this day of portal time, don't you think it's smart to bring in a kid with a really good niche that also is a guy that's kind of bought in? That isn't that prima donna top 50 kid that's going to be gone if he doesn't play as a freshman.
Right. Right.
Again, you got to build a roster. It's
clearly wanted to be here.
Yeah. This isn't NCAA, EA Sports where you're just recruiting 99s all the time.
Right.
Right. It's about building a roster. And that's what it brings to the table.
100%. So without further ado,
I love this response from DK. It's kind of like Vince that was supposed to be the side man, but he became the dude. I dig it.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah, you never know. Don't trust those recruiting rankings. All right.
That's right. Sleeper, baby.
That's right. All day. All right. So what do you say we jump into the film? And
I just want to respond to some real quick. Somebody just said, build a roster of blue chippers. Good for the optics, plus dogs want to play. Again, I just pointed out the back-to-back national champions leading receiver was a kid that was not a blue chipper. And yet this is what's funny. It just in one ear, out the other. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just, I don't care. It's just, okay, so we should not follow Georgia's path. We should ignore Georgia and the way they did it and just focus on blue chippers, okay, probably not. I can give you, dude, I could do this all day. That's not one example. I just gave you another one, Clemson. So we're talking about 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 8 titles. I just gave you the kid for 3 of the 8 titles that this kid would rank higher coming out of high school. You want another one? What was Roman Wilson's ranking coming out of high school? The leading receiver who for the most recent national champion. What was his ranking coming out of high school? Was he a top 150 guy? Was he that dude? I'll tell you, no, he wasn't. He was a borderline top 300 player. I mean, rivals had him as a 3-star. Nobody had him as a top 30 receiver coming into high school. And he was the leading receiver for a team that just won a title. That's half of the national champions in the last 8 years. And that's just off the top of my head. Justin Jefferson ranked outside the top 1,000. It's another one. So, I mean, we could do this all day. Right. And that's you just don't build teams of star rankings. It may make fans sleep better at night, but it's not how you build a roster.
Right. Exactly.
And this kid can play. And again, I'm not a guy that has him ranked. This isn't me spinning to y'all. This is a 4-star top 100 guy. And no, he's not that in my opinion, but he's a guy that adds value to what you're trying to build. He adds a trait that you need on this roster. And if he starts for you, you're good. If you over-recruit him, you're even better. And that's how you build a roster.
Well, there's a reason they give you 85. They don't give you 22 scholarships. They give you 85 for a reason. You've got to build depth. And you've got to take a chance on some kids, too. And I'm not saying they're taking a chance, quote unquote, but they see a specific need in the offense, and they went and filled that need with Shaun Terry. That's the way I look at it. You know, and we've all been either in charge of an offense or part of an offense or whatever, where okay, for my offense to operate at its peak efficiency, I need a guy to do this, and I need a guy to do this. Okay, well, in high school, you kind of got to, round peg, square hole thing. But like in college, you can recruit. Okay, this is what I need. Box, box, box. Okay, this guy checks all of those boxes. Oh, coach, he's only ranked a 3-star. I don't care. He checks the boxes for what I need in my offense. We're going to go after this kid. I mean, it's naive to think that you're just going to, we only recruit 5 stars at Notre Dame. Like that's just
nobody does that.
No,
nobody does that.
That's naive. That's not reality. And so,
but I like this. I like this, awesome. Vince. I like this kid. Again, a lot of talent. We're gonna pull up the film. Are you ready? Is that what we got next? You're the MC, buddy.
On it? Okay. Let's jump into it. Let's jump into the film, because this is one of my favorite parts. Actually, is when we get to watch the film.
No doubt. First thing you're going to see, Vince, when we're watching this kid is the after the catch stuff. Right. I mean, that's this. But here's the thing that, like, it's a cheat code. I mean, now again, like, let's talk about the level he plays.
Yeah, that's always very important.
He plays at a good level of Ohio football from a high school standpoint.
Sure.
The level he plays at is mostly producing like D2 and D3 kids, right? So it's not like he's going against kids from Columbus. He's not playing against the Cincinnati level, that kind of thing. But he comes from a really good program. I mean, Ironton was even good when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. Ironton was a good football program. So that's the thing. That's out of the gate. Think about that. But what you're going to see, things that I like, this is what we're talking about. He's has a great feel in space. He's super sudden. You're going to see a couple things here, Vince. You don't see him. I'm just going to say this to kind of tweak Ryan a little bit, because we were having some fun with this. He doesn't have a robust route package,
route tree,
tree, but he does a lot of this stuff, right? Man. This is him in the punt game. He does a lot of this, just make plays in space, but the skill set is there. And that's what I'm saying. This kid's not a 4.4 guy, but watch how quickly he gets to full speed. I mean, he's there in a hurry, and that suddenness, it's a 45-degree cut. I don't care who you're going against. That's going to be effective. And
he's breaking tackles too, so that shows the strength and the lower body strength right there. Look at that. Kid goes too high on him. Good luck.
Feet never stop moving.
Yeah,
they just don't. You can see that lower body. The balance he has is exceptional. Balance to me in this situation, it's like, are you a kid that can can take a hit, keep moving your feet. Can you make a cut and not slow down, not stutter, not have to gather, all those type of things. I mean, he brings a lot of that to the table.
Look at the respect they gave him
Right.
and how much room they're giving him off the line. Holy cow.
Yeah. Somebody
were
compared him to
afraid to get
Rodney
beat.
Gallagher, who Notre Dame liked out of West Virginia last year. Remember him? That's a very good comp, Mike. Very good comp in the chat. I like that comp. Again, he's a guy that needs work. This is not a real, this is not teaching tape route technique here.
Oh yeah, no.
But that's okay. He's got the quickness for it.
Right.
And the route, so that part's going to come. I like that one. I mean, that part's going to come, but this is what you're looking for. This stuff right here, just to get through that little crease right there. Like, that's an impressive type of deal. Boom.
He does such a good job of splitting defenders.
Yeah.
And he can feel when a guy has over pursued even a step.
Yeah.
And he makes him pay for it.
It's a combination of two things, Vince. As you know, you've got to have anticipation, right? And it's that vision thing. It's anticipation, but also you got to know how to set guys up. And he does a very good job of setting guys up. He does, like you said, you see a little bit of that deep speed here. But what I like, Vince, is in the few instances we see it, he does track the ball very well. Like, he has good ball skills, even though he doesn't do a ton of this.
Well, I noticed it on the punt return, to be honest with you. He tracked that ball really, really well.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do going backwards.
This is a nice forward lean too, Vince. You see, he doesn't have a lot of wasted motion off the ball. That's another thing too. So, good top end, shows good quickness out of here. He's going to be a separator because of how sudden he is. That's the thing I like. And again, catches the ball well, tracks the ball well. This kid has a lot of ability. And he was an interesting player because he averaged over 10 yards. He had 28 carries, I believe, this year. And he averaged over 10 yards a catch on those carries, but he also averaged over 20 yards a catch as a pass catcher. He averaged, I think, something like 19.4 yards per touch on offense, and then also had the 5 punt returns for touchdowns. So, yeah, I mean, you're catching a swing route to the right, and you score up the left sideline.
Correct.
It's a pretty good play. Just a natural, easy movement, right? When people talk about loose hips, this is what loose hips looks like. There's no herky-jerky, nothing like that. This is all smooth, no matter where he's going. Small, all smooth. And this is junior film for people asking. Somebody asked about a comp to Percy Harvin. Percy was incredibly explosive and fast, so I would not comp Percy. I think you could comp Percy and from a usage standpoint, like how you used him, jet sweeps, shovel screens, a lot of that type of stuff. Athletically, they don't really compare, but how Florida used Percy, I could see a lot of similarities here with Shaun Terry.
Wow, that's a great job of getting to the edge.
Yeah. Now, this is the kind of thing you look at, Vince, and you say, like, this type of play does not translate to the next level.
No, it doesn't.
Because he's faster than the kids he's going against, but he doesn't have the speed to do this kind of thing per se. But again, it's that get him in space and let him make people miss thing that you really look for here from him.
Oh my gosh.
How do you not cover that?
The safety came downhill so fast. He just ran right by him.
Here, you're not going to track. Like, that's another example, Vince, of him tracking it really well. He sees it's over his head. That's the hardest ball to track as a punt returner, is that one that's over your head.
Exactly. That was my point earlier. And watch this move. Catches, boom. Like, he does no wasted movement.
Go Vince.
I was just going to say, as soon as he caught the ball, he's moving, like right now, because he can feel the pressure. And it's quick.
That's true, and you're spot on with that initial move. But both of these moves right here are setups.
Yeah,
like he sets this guy up, boom, stutter him, beat him outside. This guy's got a good angle. He does two different things. This guy I want to beat outside, and this all happens in 2 seconds. This guy I want to beat outside because he has an angle on me outside. So I got to stutter him inside and then boom, beat him outside. This guy's got an angle on me. I need to stretch him, boom, beat him inside. Like, that's setting guys up. That's that feel for it. That's that anticipation of it. And it's a lot of good stuff here. Now, like the outrunning guy stuff, I don't know that he'll do quite as much at Notre Dame. But again, you get a guy like this in space, he's not going to get caught by too many people. I love that patience here. Like, okay, I don't know where I'm going to go. Oh, there's my crease. Boom. And then he hits it. And again, you see that balance.
Breaking tackle right there.
Yeah. It's really good balance. Boom. I'm right back and I'm back to full speed. So a lot of times you'll see guys make moves and like they kind of stumble or it takes them a few steps to gather. This kid makes a move and he's gone.
Right.
He also had, I think, like 32 tackles on defense this past year as well. So he plays. I think Ryan had something like 3 interceptions, 6 pass breakups, like 7 tackles for loss. Like he does everything. He's an old school football player, Ryan, or Vince. Goodness gracious.
Well, you got Ryan and Shaun so
far. I
far.
was just talking about Ryan.
You're good, man.
Yeah.
I'm just
Which Shaun was I talking about? That's the question. But we were talking how there's just not enough kids that are old school football players. Where when we were kids, the best player on the team, if he was a skill player, he played every phase of the game.
100%.
You don't see as much of that anymore. This kid does. This kid, corner, receiver, running back, kick return, punt returner. He does it all. See, this showed me something right here, Vince. He does have a good feel as a route runner. You see him make that post cut. He sees it zone, throttle in, settle in, give your quarterback a target. Oh, my. Yeah. And now it's just embarrassing people. But, like, this is fun to watch. But to win in college, you got to know how to find space first.
Right.
You could be great in space, but if you don't know how to get in space, then you're not going to be as effective. If this kid doesn't understand, boom, I'm out of my grade. He sees zone immediately, throttles in, and then he gets the ball. But you got to be able to get yourself in place to get the ball before you can start embarrassing people. And that's a lot of what Shaun Terry brings to the table, Vince. That's fun to watch. We're halfway through his highlight film right now, guys.
And every one of these plays is a highlight, by the way.
Right. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
No. So again, but like this is part of being a good evaluator. Is Shaun is Vince. I have recruited kids like this to the Division III level that had similarly impressive highlight tapes, but they were 4.8s. They played against even worse competition. You've got to be able to evaluate. Okay, does this translate to our level of play?
Sure.
That's the question. And that's why Notre Dame needed to verify that 40 time, because the quickness, the suddenness, the toughness, all that you can see, the vision, tracking the ball. But does he have the true speed to play at this level? That's the question that you have to find out.
Right.
I like that route.
Oh, he set him up perfectly on that, didn't he?
That inside stem, that kid had no chance. Tracks the ball, great feel for where he is. And there's going to be times he's going to lose 3 or 4 yards, and you just have to own it. You have to say, hey, look, it is what it is. You take that because he's going to do some other things with the ball. This is another punt return. I think we've seen 3 or 4 of his punt returns for touchdowns already.
Yeah. Oh,
just very smooth in space. That's the thing. Very, very easy agility, very loose hips, full speed right away. And that's what you look for. Hey, I may only be a 4.6, but I'm a 4.6 out of the gate.
And there's definitely, like you said, there's definitely some things he's going to have to learn. Like there was no point in running backwards on that last play. Right. You know what I mean? But again, it's going to be about getting positive yardage, but that's all going to come. I mean, he's going to understand the level that he's playing against and what he needs to do.
This is a perfect example, Vince. This is it's not because you got to be careful. You can't just be doing left, right all the time. I mean, you're not Barry Sanders. This is a vertical play. This is all about north, south. Right. Find my crease. This is a direct snap to him. Find my crease. Boom. Get vertical. Run to daylight. There's nothing cute about that. It's vision, patience. Boom, and then you hit it. So you see that he's not just a dancer for the sake of dancing. And you need guys like that.
Hey, not afraid to go over the middle. Yeah. Go up and get the ball either. I like that.
Yep. Yeah, now he's just toying with people. You're just like, come on. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, what's he doing here? That's the balance we talk about.
Correct.
To be able to take all those hits and,
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to like here.
Playing at Marshall.
Yeah, I was going to look up their schedule and see who this was against. Because I was like, no, that's not that Marshall. And then I looked, I was like, no, it is. Because you can see the Sun Belt Conference thing on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Here's another punt return. Man, I mean, he had 5 punt returns, but it's like, why are people still kicking to this kid?
Seriously.
Like, honestly, you'd be better off taking a knee half the time. You know what I mean? Like, come on, guys. What are we doing here?
It looked like there was one that tried to kick it out of bounds, but it didn't quite go out of bounds, and he picked it up on a hop.
Yeah.
They still made a heck of a play.
Yeah. That was a good one. Yeah. Yep. Here he is playing defense.
Okay.
You see good closing speed. Kid's a football player. And again, is he a dynamic guy? Is he? Oh man, this is it's a nice little stick there, right? Block destruction, boom, get vertical, bring the wood when you make the tackle.
Like it.
Yeah, this is not a quote unquote gap closer from the standpoint of just a no doubt about it. Guy's going to be great. This kid's a good football player, man. It's a really good football player. There he's tracking the ball on defense. You see how fluid his hips are, Vince, right? Not great technique on the pedal, but you just see how easily he gets to accelerate, gets to turn, tracks the ball well, outplays the guy for the football.
Exactly. 50-50 ball, able to go get it. I like that too.
Yeah. But there's a lot to like here.
Mm-hmm.
Like my only concern, honestly, Vince, when I watched him was the speed, the top end speed. And once I was told what he got verified with at Notre Dame, all right, cool, take him.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't, that was my big, I don't know if I want to take this guy right now, just because you just couldn't really tell. This is a football player. I mean, look at him coming off the edge on a blitz, comes up field. He's the force player, rips the ball out.
Yeah, little strip
to the house. Boom.
I like it.
He's a good football player. Yeah, these defensive clips ones I really like because they show his toughness.
Correct. Agreed.
That's the stuff I really like. Like this kid's going to compete. This kid's going to get after it. He's going to be really dynamic. So he's a fun watch, Vince. There's no doubt about that.
Well, then you add the intangible that he wants to be at Notre Dame. Right. I mean, that
was so obvious.
You know what I mean? Like that matters to me. Like he wants to be at Notre Dame, and so I love that. So that just adds to the package. And like you said, he fits in this offense. He fits what the coaches were looking for. There you go. And so the next question is, what's next?
Right.
What's next at wide receiver? And then is there anything else coming down the pike in recruiting? But first, what's next at wide receiver?
That's kind of the $1 million question right now, right? And that's going to determine how a lot of people feel about this process.
Yeah.
And so right now we don't know what's next at receiver. I mean, I think we all know that at some point in time you're going to take Jerome Bettis Jr., I would imagine, that he'll commit to Notre Dame at some point in time. And, now you're getting down to, okay, you've got 4 spots. You've got one in Elijah Burris, who I love as a player. Elijah Burris actually graded higher to me than Shaun Terry. But he's more of a pure receiver that can do things after the catch, where Shaun Terry's an after the catch guy that's got to learn to play receiver.
Sure.
So I really like the compliment. I mean, that's your Z in your slot, your Z and your F in this defense. And so, or in this offense. And so, those traits are things you look for. So that's 2 of the 4. You're halfway there. You get Jerome Bettis Jr., that's 3. Then it's like, okay, what's next? How you finish this class out is I think going to determine how a lot of people feel about Elijah Burris and Shaun Terry. Fair or not, that's just the reality of it. So, right now the board is, we all know about Jerome Bettis Jr. We know about Derek Meadows. He's obviously a guy the staff is very high on. He's been on campus before, camped at Notre Dame this past year as well. He's another guy that's blown up from a recruiting standpoint recently, right. Vince. I mean, he went to a camp recently and performed very well. And since then, his offer list has just exploded. In recent weeks, he's gotten offers from Tennessee, Auburn, LSU, Arizona, Michigan, Alabama, Florida, Georgia have all offered him in recent weeks. Notre Dame obviously offered him over a year ago. Notre Dame's in a good position there, but I do not think he's the given that people – I think there's some people that think Derek Meadows is just a matter of when, not if. I don't agree with that. I think you've got to recruit the heck out of this kid. If you want him, you're going to have to stay on him. I do like where Notre Dame is at. It's just this is probably going to be a long process. At the earliest he'll commit, to me, it'd be the end of the summer at the earliest. And I could see a scenario in which he kind of takes it into the season. So he's another guy that's high on their board. Raiden, they were high on Lex Cyrus. I'm curious to see where that one goes now that you got Shaun Terry, because Lex Cyrus is like almost a cookie cutter of Shaun Terry, and I don't know that you need 2 of those guys in this class.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see where that one goes, to be honest with you. Raiden Vines Bright is a guy that's going to be on campus this spring. He's going to come in for practice. He's a kid that's originally from, I believe, Arizona, that's now at IMG. He's a guy that the staff likes a lot. He has said a lot of good things about Notre Dame. We got to see him get to campus first before we really know, what kind of chance they have. When he went to IMG, we'll see, right? We'll see how things go when he's at IMG. He's another guy that they like. And then, of course, Taylor's a guy that's high on the board as well. There's some other players on the board that they have offers from, but that's the focus primarily right now.
Sure.
To me, Taylor's and Derek Meadows are the two must-gets. We talked about this on the RTCF show on Saturday night, Vince, with Shaun. I got it right. You're Vince. Did a show with Shaun. And, my two must-gets on offense from a skill standpoint were Derek Meadows and Taylor. Derek Meadows for the unique skill set and the upside, but Taylor because, that's that dude. And you've got to beat Georgia for him. You got to beat Ohio State for him. You got to beat Michigan for him. But Taylor, to me, is a guy that brings a lot to the table and would be a huge win. And we always talk about, man, you've got to close in your backyard. You've got to own your backyard. You've got to own the Chicago area. Sure. You've got to own Illinois. You can't lose to Georgia, and you can't lose to Ohio State and Michigan and Illinois. You got to get those guys. So that's a big one. Right now, I think Notre Dame's in the top 3 or 4 group. If he was going to pick today, I would not choose Notre Dame for him, but they're in the game. And this is one that I could see kind of playing out a little bit longer, Vince. He's one that I think if he doesn't commit to Notre Dame this summer, even if he commits somewhere else, if they're willing to stay on him, he's one that I think could be really impacted by the offense taking a jump in the fall. That's one because I think if you're him, you're kind of like, I love Notre Dame in a lot of different areas, but
it's a wait and see approach.
Yeah. Do I really fit that, that system? That's that I don't know, but that's pretty much the board right now.
Okay.
I think obviously Jerome Bettis Jr. is the most likely to commit. I would expect him to commit probably sometime in June or July. I do think he wants to get, at least take a couple more spring visits. He's got, Texas A&M's pushing hard for him. Georgia Tech's pushing hard for him. There's some schools really pushing for him. And obviously he wants to, get to some more of these camps. He was at an event this past weekend. So I would expect Notre Dame to get that one wrapped up in the next, 4 or 5 months, but I don't think Jerome is going to rush this. There's a lot of reasons why he doesn't want to rush this. I think he wants to make sure that Notre Dame really wants him. I think he wants to, continue to build up his profiles when he does commit. There's no talking about, he's just Jerome Bettis' kid, and he wants to go prove himself. That's why. Say what you want about Jerome Bettis Jr. He's at every event that he can possibly get to. 7-on-7 camps. He's trying to prove himself.
Sure.
He's trying to improve as a player, and I respect the heck out of that.
Yeah.
So
he's not just riding his name,
right? Not at all. Not at all. Because you think, okay, son of a famous football player, comes from privilege in a way that his dad didn't. Goes to a really good private school. Does this kid really want it? Is this kid really a worker? Yeah. And you talked with Ryan, did an interview, a 2-part interview with an assistant coach from the high school. And they're like, this kid they love him. He's humble, right? He's not a kid that, the thing they said is you wouldn't know that he's got a famous dad and he's been to Super Bowls and done all these fun things as a big time player. You wouldn't know that. He's a worker. He's a grinder. He's a great teammate. He's tough. Hey, we asked him to play defense this year. So I got it. Go out and play defense. You know what I mean? And he mentioned something that was intriguing. The coach there said he thinks he has a frame that maybe he could grow into an H-back, which I thought was very intriguing. But his point was, whatever you ask this kid to do, he will do. And so you got to love the competitiveness, Vince, because, I've always felt when it comes to parents, kids of famous parents, there's always exceptions, but I've always kind of found they go one of 2 directions.
Sure.
They're either really spoiled, soft kids, or they are really driven because they want to make a name for themselves on their own. Not that they dislike their parents, but they want to be known as themselves. I earned this.
Right.
I went and did this. And a lot of times that comes from the parents. The parents are going to say, look, you're my son, but you need to earn. I had to earn it. You need to earn it.
Right.
So when you look at kids like Ivan Taylor, you look at kids like Jerome Bettis Jr., you look at kids like Elijah Burris, those are all kids that come from, but every time we talk to one of their coaches, this kid's a worker, this kid's a worker, this kid's a worker. And that's what you look for, because you can get swept up in the name. Oh, it's Plexico Burris's kid. That's Jerome Bettis's kid. Sure. That's Ike Taylor's kid. Okay, fine. but you're not recruiting Jerome Bettis. You're not recruiting Plexico Burris. You're not recruiting Ike Taylor. You're recruiting their kids. Are their kids workers?
Right.
And you always got to be kind of careful with that. But with these kids, everyone we talk to, it's always great worker, great attitude, humble kid. And then say, okay, yeah, I'm on board. I'm on board. And so that's kind of what you're looking for. And that's what I like about him. So, and then Shaun Terry, obviously, is part of that too. Worker.
Right.
And I think that's part of the culture change that Marcus Freeman's still trying to add. He's looking for guys. There's guys that Notre Dame has passed on that are really talented players. And I won't say who, because, I'm not trying to throw a kid under the bus or throw shade at a kid where they're like, yeah, I know we like the kid, but we did our due diligence on this kid. And even his own high school coaches question his toughness or his work ethic or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, dynamic player, but that's not a kid you're winning with at Notre Dame, because that kid won't do the work necessary. And you got to be careful with those type of things.
Absolutely.
You got to be careful with those type of things.
It is amazing to me as I dive through this recruiting thing as a parent, how important the high school coach recommendation is, especially with high school coaches that college coaches trust, right? It is, I mean, it carries a lot of weight, both positively and negatively, right? And so if you don't even have your own high school coach on your side, as far as like giving you props and saying that you're a hard worker and you're a leader and you're all of these different things, if you can't even get your high school coach on your side, good luck getting a college coach on your side, at least a quality college coach that is doing his due diligence on you. And so it is incredibly important. So if you're hearing negative things from a high school coach, if I was a recruiter, man, that's a huge turnoff.
There was a kid a few years ago that was ranked like a top 5 overall national player, went to a private school, and everybody's like, why didn't Notre Dame go after this kid? And I remember asking the Notre Dame coach, he's like, dude, his high school coach just said, this kid, you do not want to be part of this kid.
Yeah.
And the kid ended up going to like 5 different colleges.
Right.
You're like, yep, because college coaches have a vested interest in the ones that produce kids on a consistent basis. They have a vested interest in, I need you to trust me when I tell you something, because if I screw you over on this kid, then that's going to hurt the next kid that comes along out of my program. And so that's the thing you like, is you hear you hear the right things from all the right people, and that's something you're looking for. 100%. That's what's next at receiver, Vince. Overall, tomorrow morning, Maddie Augustine, the 2025 offensive lineman from Connecticut, is going to make his decision known. And Maddie is going to be choosing. I got to pull up his thing because I'm trying to remember. I know Ohio State was one of the schools. I know Michigan is one of the schools. I gotta find what Maddie's Final 5 is. So just give me a second. And it is Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And so that's his 5. He's an interesting kid. He came to camp at Notre Dame last year. Not a lot of people knew about him. He's a former basketball player. He's only played football for like 2 years, I believe. Reclassified to 25. He was originally a young 2024 kid.
Oh, okay.
So he reclassified to 2025. That also was partly due to the fact that he's no longer playing basketball.
Oh, okay.
So he came to camp this summer as a guy that we didn't know a lot about, dominated at camp. The coaches loved him, got an offer, coming out of the camp. And he's been a top target ever since by the Notre Dame staff. So he's a very raw player, completely different guy than Will Black and Owen Strebig, who are already like borderline 300-pounders now. He's 260, 255, this summer, but great frame. As he gets further and further away from being a basketball player, you'll see the frame. Because you remember how skinny Kyle Rudolph was as a high school senior, and then he stops playing basketball, and all of a sudden he's 250.
He looked like a basketball player.
I mean, yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Like, yeah.
So he's going to decide tomorrow. Look, of the 5 schools, we won't talk a lot about this. We'll talk about his decision tomorrow more. But of all the 5 schools on his list, you'd rather be where Notre Dame is going into his decision. That's where they're at. So Notre Dame has been the team to beat really since they offered. And despite other summer. Wow. And Maddie's a kid too, Shaun, or goodness gracious, man, I need a nap so stinking bad. It's another thing, Vince, like you're the OG, man. How the heck am I getting I used to be where I would like call everyone else Vince,
I've dropped on the totem pole.
Maddie's no, it's not, that's
joking.
not true.
I'm joking
at
that's
all.
Funny.
But you look at Maddie's recruiting. This is another one. What are you going to go off of? You're going to go off of his recruiting rankings, because, again, they don't tell the full story. Everyone has him ranked as a 3-star recruit. I have him ranked as a 3.5-star recruit.
Okay.
But you're not recruiting him because of who he is today.
Correct.
You're recruiting him because of what you think he can be down the road. And that's what they're looking for. And you can tell that there's a lot of people that feel this way. Here's Maddie, consensus 3-star recruit. Nobody, including yours truly, has him ranked as a 4-star. Here's his offer list in alphabetical order: Alabama, Boston College, Duke, Florida, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Miami, Michigan, Michigan State, Missouri, Nebraska, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Penn State, Pitt, Rutgers, Stanford, Syracuse, Tennessee, Texas A&M, UCLA, Vanderbilt, Virginia, Wisconsin. He's been to Wisconsin 3 times. He's been to Ohio State 3 times. He's visited Penn State recently. He's visited Penn State, not recently. He's obviously been to Notre Dame a bunch. He's been to North Carolina multiple times. He's been to Michigan multiple times. So he's been to Florida. This is a kid that's been everywhere, visited Alabama. So these are all things that you look at and say, hey, this is a kid that's got the tools. People are banking on the upside.
Absolutely.
I'm actually, this isn't one where I'm like, the recruiting services don't know what they're talking about. He's a 3-star, but on their system, he's a 3-star. But this is what they're recruiting him for what he will be, not what he is.
So you always have an upside grade.
Yes.
Right. So what is your upside grade?
4.5-star.
Okay. All
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now it's a long ways to get there. And of all the offensive linemen, he's the one that you say, if I'm betting on them, I'm putting him at the bottom of the list because he needs to add 40 pounds. He's got still a lot to learn, but the athleticism is impressive. The length's impressive. He's a feisty kid, and but he just has a lot to learn. He looks like a tall, long, athletic kid that's still learning how to play football. That's what he looks like. But they're banking on the frame is really good and the athleticism is really good. Yeah. And that's what people are betting on. And so that's a position. I think that's one position where fans by and large seem to care a little less about rankings, understandably, because that's a position where you see so many first-round NFL draft picks that nobody ever heard of coming out of high school. It's a very
Notre Dame has a track record of recruiting offensive linemen that end up being exactly what you just said.
Right.
First-round NFL draft picks. You know what I mean? And so I get where fans are coming around from an offensive line standpoint, because they kind of give Notre Dame the benefit of the doubt too. It's like, oh, Notre Dame's interested in this offensive lineman, then we're on board with it. And this kid feels more to me kind of like an old school offensive line recruit, in that he's going to need a few years.
Yeah.
Like he's not a guy that's going to come in and be ready to go and compete as a freshman.
As of right now, correct. I mean, he's the type of weird kid that the light could just go on as a senior and you're just like, holy crap, where did that come from? But yes, Vince, to your point, from
a physical standpoint, because there's been a lot of guys back in the day. Remember, I mean, offensive linemen used to come in and they would sit for 2 years while they just worked out. And they got in the weight room, they got bigger, stronger, understood the college game, all these different things. And here we are, ready to go, third year of, in college, right?
Yeah.
And so I feel like he kind of fits that mold from a physicality standpoint, from a build and all of that. But again, he's a junior, right? And so believe me, I've seen it with my own eyes. A lot of things can happen from junior to senior year from a physicality standpoint. And if he has reclassified from 24, which I didn't realize, he could do a lot of growing between now and next year.
That's right.
Yeah. But I love that Notre Dame's all over this kid. And see what happens tomorrow. That should be fun to see. So,
Vince, I know we're going to be getting into a little bit of rapid fire here in a little bit, but we are going to do a little special mailbag today because Vince and I don't get it. So if you do have questions, you can go ahead and throw those in there now. We only have 3 so far, but I know normally on IB Nation Sports Talk, guys don't normally do mailbags.
Yeah, a lot of times we'll pull some questions and kind of fit them into rapid fire or something like that.
Because it's us.
Yeah, baby.
And the OG's got to do it. We're going to do a little mailbag at the end. So get those questions in there, and we will get to those after we do the rapid fire. But you want to go ahead and close this segment out, Vince, before we get to the rapid fire?
Absolutely. So, hey, thanks everybody for joining us. Stick around. We got a little bit of a mailbag coming up. But before we get to that, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell, all of the things that cost you nothing and mean everything to us. And then also jump on the boards at I will say, as I was doing my research on Shaun Terry, where did I start? At boards.irishbreakdown.com.
That's
So
right.
that's where you want to check things out. And then, of course, that sent me over to irishbreakdown.com because class impact story, all that fun stuff. So make sure you get over there because the boards is where the intel lies. Eventually, if you're a super patient person, eventually we'll talk about what's on the board, days or weeks later. But if you want to know what's going on in real time, folks, you got to get over on the boards. That's where it's happening. So make sure you sign up, get on there, join the community. Great conversation going over there. It's like a ritual for me. I'm checking the boards multiple times a day. It's like I said, great community over there. So make sure you get that done. All right, Brian, let's jump into a little bit of mailbag here. I know.
Well,
right?
no mailbag. Rapid fire.
Oh, we're going rapid fire. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad. Rapid
what I was
fire.
saying is after rapid fire, we're going to have a mailbag.
So people can get their questions in now.
That's right.
See, I'm here. I'm here somewhere. Okay.
I know I threw you off by changing up the normal IB Sports Talk flow. I know,
good.
man. I'm sorry, but I just wanted to let people know we're going to do it a little different tonight.
Beautiful. So
since the OGs are together. But
that's right.
I am not passing up a chance to do rapid fire, man.
Right.
I wish I'm not good at coming up with those questions. Any chance this is how Shaun would have me on and we do a rapid fire, and you guys used to do them all the time. So I'm excited about this one. Some good topics today too, Vince. By the way.
Thank you. I tried to hit it all over the place today. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So here we go. Rapid fire question number 1. It is blank that Notre Dame baseball is 3-0 after a sweep of Rice this weekend.
It's a positive start. It's positive. I mean, you talk about last year, Vince, they lost their first series against Lipscomb, lost two out of 3. The Bats really struggled. They won 2 out of 3 against UNC Greensboro. And, just they never could find their way. The Bats were really an issue last year.
Struggle.
Yeah. I mean, they had a couple series here and there where they scored, but they just weren't a very good scoring team last year overall. Yeah. So to come out in the first years, Rice isn't what they used to be. I know they've won a championship in the past, but they were at 21-37 last year. Still, you come out, you go on the road, you go down to Texas, you score. First game I think it was like 3-1, something like that. So it's like, okay, no Bats again. Then you go 9-13 the next 2. Right. You had to come from behind in game 3. Bats really came through, and a lot of the transfer Bats came through yesterday. And they had one of the freshmen, I think he's a catcher, hit a home run yesterday. So Tito Flores, who you got in the portal, I think from Michigan, had a grand slam in the 9th.
Yeah, huge. That was huge.
The Bats got going early this year, so it was nice to see that. So it's a good start. It's not super telling on what the season is going to be, but it's certainly a good start for the program. Certainly a good start.
Well, and I do like the fact that they opened up with Rice. And again, like you said, they've been down a little bit, but that's still that's still a name, right? That's still a name. It turns your head. It gets your attention. They're playing Rice. They're at Rice, right? I mean, it is truly an away situation, right? Now they get a couple of series against FIU and Tennessee Tech. So another opportunity to kind of get things moving in the right direction. They got a 4-game series against FIU down in Miami. And then they head over to Tennessee to play Tennessee Tech. So the next 2 series should be ones that Notre Dame can win.
Yeah,
and just kind of really get the juices flowing before they play Purdue for the home opener on March 5th, which who knows what the weather is going to be like on March 5th. Right?
I'm looking at this, Vince. I think all but one of their first 18 or 19 games are on the road.
Yes.
You got the 4-game series against FIU, 3-game series at Tennessee Tech. Then you're home against Purdue, assuming you even play that.
Yeah.
Then 3 on the road at Virginia Tech, 2 on the road against Radford. So they'll just stay out in Virginia for those because those are right by each other.
And they're almost on top of each other from a date standpoint. Yeah. I think that's spring break, actually.
It's 8, 9, 10, and then day 12, off, 13, and then 12, 13.
Yeah.
Then you head right down to Florida State for a 3-game series down at Florida State against Lake Jarrett. Yeah. And then you're back home for a game against Western Michigan, and then a 3-game series against Miami, and then so it'll be a lot of fun. And you and I are gonna have to head out to some games this year. I'm
100%. I'm me. I used to be a head baseball coach. Love baseball. I love following this team when they're good. Obviously, it's even more fun. But they had a bunch of home runs this weekend, and I mean, I wish I had ESPN Plus. I would have turned on a game or two, but I don't. But once they get into ACC play, there'll be some more games on TV, and if you're in the area, it used to be free to get in. I don't know if they've changed that policy or not. I hope not, because it's always fun to pack the stands at Frank Eck, and I believe they got a new scoreboard out there with a video board. So that'll be a fun little addition for the fan experience. So, this team is fun to watch, man. This team is fun to watch, and so it'll be very. I'm very intrigued by the Sean Stifler year 2.
Yeah.
Right. Year 1 is always kind of a hodgepodge. You got guys leaving, guys coming in.
Dude, and they lost so much.
Yes. From that World Series team.
Oh, man, they lost so much from that team.
Right. Really did. So now he's had a whole year plus an offseason to kind of shape this team into who he wants them to be. And they're hitting dingers, all weekend. So let's see what happens here moving forward. But I like the path that they're on, man. They might be able to scratch the surface of a top 25 team here if they can take care of business over the next couple of weekends. So should be a lot of fun. All right. Staying at Notre Dame. Switching teams. Men's basketball is on their first 2-game ACC win streak in 2 years. So, in other words, their first win streak at all, since it's only 2 games, in 2 years. Scale of 1 to 10. Chances that they run the streak to 3 on Wednesday night at Louisville.
With this, Vince, I'm going to go with a 7.
Nice. Okay. I like it.
Because number one, it's interesting. It's the worst scoring offense in the ACC, Notre Dame, against the worst scoring defense in the ACC, which is Louisville. Louisville is so bad. It is wild. They have never been able to recover from what with Rick Pitino leaving. They're last place in the league. They're 3-12 in conference play. They're not even. I mean, they're at least 500 at home. But Notre Dame has been a very scrappy team. They're starting to find some answers a little bit on offense. And the big thing, Vince, is they're learning how to close.
Yes.
They're like Notre Dame is the best 9-6 team in college, 9-16 team in college basketball, I feel. You know what I mean? Because
absolutely,
they've had so many competitive losses where it's like, even at some of the games they lost like by a decent amount, it was like competitive for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they really battled. And so they went through that really tough losing streak. And they just kept competing, and they bounced back with back-to-back home wins over Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech, who aren't that good. But you're playing one of the worst defensive teams in all of college basketball in this game, and you got to hope that you can kind of get that going. And when you talk about Louisville, this is the team you want to play if your offense is struggling. I mean, they gave up 86 in the loss to Pitt, 89 in the loss to BC, 67 in a win over Virginia Tech, 94 in the loss to Syracuse, 92 in a win over Florida State. I mean, so this team gives up a lot of points. And one thing Notre Dame can do is defend. I mean, that's the thing is Notre Dame's their defense. They got the last place scoring offense, but Notre Dame's got the number 2 scoring defense.
Yes,
in the ACC. This year.
What Notre Dame has, they play good defense. They do. And defense travels. And so I'm not overly concerned about the fact that it's on the road, because I do think Notre Dame is scrappy defensively. I mean, that is one thing. They rebound and they play defense. The offense, you never know what you're going to get from game to game. I mean, let's be honest. I've been to a bunch of games this year. You just never know what you're going to get offensively.
You were at the Virginia Tech game the other night, right?
Yes,
where their offense looked pretty good.
It looked great
for them. Yeah.
Well, and it's it's very beneficial when it's not just Marcus Burton as your only scorer, right? And he generally does a good job of setting up his teammates. The problem is the shots don't go down, right? And so it makes you such a better offensive team when you've got the first step of Marcus Burton driving to the hole, doing the things that he does. But then as the team collapses on him, he dishes out and those shots get made. And so is it going to be J.R. Knesny? Is it going to, who is it going to be? Booth? Is it going to be, who's it going to be? Who's going to pick up some of the offensive slack? I like what I've seen the last couple of games.
It'd be really nice if they could somehow get more out of Kerry Booth.
Yes.
He's got a chance to be really, really good.
And Kerry Booth, Kebba Jai, I mean, if they can get their bigs kind of doing some of the heavy lifting when it comes to offense.
Yeah.
This team could take a corner. I mean, they could turn the corner. Not this
Yeah.
year. I'm not saying that. You are playing the long game here. I mean, Micah Shrewsbury's playing the long game, and don't be surprised.
As he should be.
Going to be some movement
Right.
on this roster because he hasn't exactly been shy about, hey, if you're not on board, we'll help you find someplace else to play. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm curious to see who those guys are, what that looks like. We'll have Tom Noy on towards the end of the season and kind of get a recap of kind of where things are at. Did they meet his expectations? You know, that kind of conversation, which I'm really looking forward to because Tom always knows what's going on inside that locker room. So interested to talk to him. But this team's the difference, Brian, for me, when I go to these games, they are a fun team to watch. They can be frustrating as all get out when the buckets aren't flying down, but man, that they compete. And I can get on board with a team that competes. And I can get on board with a head coach who's all sweaty by the end of the game because he is coaching the crap out of these kids from start to finish. I can get on board with this.
I fell in love with Micah Shrewsbury when he was in, I forget which game it was, but they embarrassed themselves.
Oh,
and
might have been the Citadel game.
I think it might have been.
Yeah.
Yes, because that's the one where the former GA dropped like 20 on him, or the former walk-on dropped like 20 on him. He transferred to Citadel and dropped like 20 on him. And somebody said they were talking about his son, and he starts talking about how, you know, he's a really good shooter, and he's like, no, he's not. And he starts like, I'm like, that's my dude right there. That's my dude. Because you're going to win your locker room over that way. I'm not favoring my son. I'll rip him more than I'll rip anybody else out here.
And he benched him. He benched him. He didn't get a lot of playing time for a while.
Exactly. He had to earn it back.
Guess what's happened? He has been so much better with his shot selection.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about his son.
That's it. Yeah.
His shot selection has been so much better, and therefore he's making more shots, which makes him more valuable and gets him on the floor.
They're starting to figure out movement, ball movement. That's the other thing. And here's the thing, you nailed it, Vince. Once they figure out a way to get some help from Marcus Burton, he's also going to get a whole lot better.
Oh, 100%.
Like,
he's putting too much on himself right now, and part of that is because he's not getting the help that he needs, right? And so he's turning the ball over too much. And but once he starts getting some of that offensive help, those turnovers are going to go way down.
Right.
They're going to go way down. So it's, like I said, this is a fun team to watch. Hopefully they can string it to 3 games on Wednesday night. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's flip over to the game that's actually occurring right now. The Irish women are on the road tonight at Duke in what feels like a must-win after the last game. So scale of 1 to 10, the chances the Irish are one of the top 16 teams and will host the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament. That's a big one, right? I mean, being able to host those first 2 rounds, having home court advantage. I mean, Notre Dame obviously has an amazing home court advantage. They're right on that bubble right now, Brian. And so what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think for me, it's a little too early to be too concerned about where that is, just because the tournament they could be 21st and then make a run in the tournament and all of a sudden jump up to 20 to 16. You know what I mean?
So that's the ACC tournament.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from, but they're just, to me, I'd say 5 because they're a scrappy team. They're just a flawed team, in my opinion. You know, they're always going to be heavily reliant on, if Maddie Westbeld has a big game, they got a chance. But if she doesn't, they're going to struggle. I mean, you know, because like Hannah Hidalgo pretty much is going to go off every game.
Right.
And that's just kind of who she is. Like,
she struggled like one game, and it was obvious. It was the last one, and
they got destroyed.
And nobody,
you know what I mean? But like when she had that off game, they got destroyed.
Yes.
But she has to do that. I mean, that's the reality of it, Vince. She has to be that person. They're down 30-27 at halftime right now. So it was they were up 16-15 in the first quarter. They got outscored 15-11 in the second quarter. But here's the reality of it. You look at it, and they got 0 points off the bench right now.
Yeah,
Hannah's got 11. You know, Kylie Watson's got a bucket. Anna DeWolf has a bucket. Sonia's only 2 of 7. Maddie's only made 2 shots so far. And it's like, you can't, Hannah's got 11. It's 11 and 4.
Yeah.
You know, but the reality is you're just not constructed properly. You know, I mean, Kylie Watson can't be your best big. Just can't. I mean, that's not fair to her. She needs to be doing what Maddie Westbeld's sister was for the championship team. You know, like the number 3 off the bench, scrappy, come in and battle. And unfortunately, Kylie's been thrust into a position that, you know, that's you know, it's tough, you know, and So this team just wasn't constructed. They tried to. We've talked about this in the other show. They had some real good success with some portal girls down low, and like Lauren Ebo last year was a great pickup for them.
Oh yeah,
but they just haven't recruited the high school level at down low like they do have. I mean, she's recruited guard as well as any team in the country.
100%.
She's get here. But, look, if you had Olivia Miles, you'd be a different deal. If Sonia was 100%, you'd be a different deal. If Anna DeWolf's 100%, KK Bransford's been banged up all year. I mean, she's been in. So you're a flawed team. They're scrappy. Right. They're a young, scrappy team, though. And so when you look at their schedule, it's good. To me, they're at 19 right now. If you can beat Duke tonight, then you got a shot. But after this, you've got Clemson at home. You're at BC. Home against Virginia Tech, home against Louisville. If you lose tonight, you're pretty much going to have to run the table.
Yeah.
To get back into that top 16, in my opinion.
Agreed.
And so tonight's a big one. It's a big one.
It is a big one. I put it right around the 5 or 6 mark as well. I think, obviously Notre Dame has that, hey, this is a really good place to have games, in the Joy Center because and it's a good place to, amplify the women's game. You know what I mean? Because there are places out there that can't fill a stadium. They can't fill an arena, even for the playoffs, right? Even for the NCAA tournament. And so part of that is going to come into play, but only if they're right there on the bubble. You know what I mean? Right. And so they're going to have to do some work to get to that point.
Yeah.
Because that they're going to fill that arena for the NCAA tournament. Because that's just who they are.
The funny thing is this year's team, they have a better record on the road than they have at home.
Do they really?
Yeah, they're 9-2 on the road. They're 8-3 at home. It is kind of funny though. Just talk about expectation for the team. Like Notre Dame is the third worst team in the ACC, and we're talking about. I like watching the men's team. They're scrappy. They're 9-16.
Right.
The women's team is like 18. What are they? 18-6.
18-6.
What a disappointing year this has been for women. You know what I mean? It's just like
bar, baby.
A little bit of different standard, man. A little bit different standard. But that's the thing. Coach Ivey just has to do a better job of combining the portal pickups down low with some really good high school. And she started off, they got a 5-star top 5 overall national player coming in.
Right.
Naismith finalist coming in, who's 6'4", 6'5", coming in next year. Just need a couple more like that, and then they're going to be really good.
Well, and I believe, and I don't know if people are going to be transferring what the deal is, but as far as eligibility is concerned, only Anna DeWolf loses her eligibility after the end of this year.
Is Kylie Watson has another year left?
Apparently, that's what Shaun told me the other day. I was kind of surprised by that, but if anybody would know, it would be him. So
it must be one of those portal deal or the COVID deals. I'm actually going to look that one up.
Yeah,
that's what. Well, and you don't have Olivia Miles.
Right.
You don't have Cass Prosper. You don't have Emma Rich. That's 3 5-star recruits.
Yes. Absolutely.
And Cass was one of your few long players you had. She's 6'2".
Their defensive strategy is completely different when she's on the floor.
100% different.
Because she is able to get into so many passing lanes and just disrupt.
She's 6'2". She's got long arms. She's quick.
Yeah.
Very and Becky Obenma has not been healthy and not been able to help you much. She's the one you got from TCU. So it's just been one of those years. It just has. But like you said though, Vince, if they do all come back next year,
right?
Yeah, man.
I mean, the most intriguing part is going to be there's only one ball. So how does Hannah and all go? And and Miles, how do they operate when they're both on the floor together? You know what I mean?
So, but looking at this, Vince, she Kylie Watson was in fact her true freshman year was the COVID year.
Okay.
So even though she's played all 4 years, she has the COVID year. So yeah, she could be back next year.
Yeah. So roster management is going to be really intriguing in the offseason too.
And I think Kylie's one of those players that's going to be better off if they can get some help down low as well.
Sure, absolutely. She's a complimentary player.
Yeah. Then she doesn't have to. She kind of has to be Lauren Ebo, and that's just not her game.
Correct.
And so it's going to be. And then if they can make Maddie like a stretch player more and not have to let her defend bigs, and
she's a small forward, she's a 3. She's a 3, right?
I mean that's a stretch 4. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I just hope that Olivia Miles comes back. I really do.
Oh, me too.
Because I'd love to see her and Hannah Dog go in the back together.
So would I.
And because you can go big and put Maddie at the 3, and then you can go small and put Sonia at the 3. I mean, there's so many different things you can do if you can get back next year you're going to have a legit interior rotation with with Kylie coming back, you've got Marshall's been a revelation as a nice rotation player.
Sure.
You get Cass Prosper back next year. You get the 5-star freshman coming in who's going to be your tallest and your biggest player. Like, you're going to actually now have some options down low. You can go big, you can go small. Well, right now they go small. They can't do anything else because everybody's out. You can go with a 4-guard lineup, at times. I mean, really. And and you'll have Emma Risch coming back next year. She's got. Have you ever seen her shoot, Vince?
Oh, she's an assassin.
A 6'1" sharpshooter, dude.
Yeah, she's an assassin from the outside.
But she's long. That's the thing. Right. She's like 6'1", so she can get her shot off a lot easier. Losing her so early, like, that stunk because she
never even had a chance to make an impression on this team. Yeah,
So it's gonna be fun to watch them play, but you gotta deal with some of the bummers of that. Right now with this team.
100%. All right, let's move on. Let's go a little NFL. I got at least one question about the NFL. Here we go. So this is like a personal question for me. If you were the Chicago Bears and you hold the 1st and the 9th pick in the NFL draft, you are doing blank.
Trading down. I really feel this. Look, I don't think Justin Fields is going to be a superstar quarterback. I don't think he's going to be a guy that you look back and say, boy, that was worthy of a top 5, top 10 pick. But I think he can be I've studied him a little bit. I'm kind of getting caught up on the NFL a little bit.
Sure.
You're telling me that he can't play quarterback if you put the right kind of team around him. They've actually got some decent weapons to work with as a foundational. Now you need to add some higher level weapons to what you have. I mean, Cole Kmet's a good player for them. I think they got DJ Moore still, correct? He's signed for next year.
Yep.
Go out and trade down to 5 and let one of those teams that wants a quarterback to come up. I don't know if 5 would necessarily be the one. I'd have to actually look at the NFL draft.
Spitball.
But like, to me, look, I know that next year's draft class isn't great, but I really would like to see them give Justin Fields a shot. And here's the other thing too, is if you're the GM, you got to be smart about this. If the head coach doesn't get it turned around this year, you're going to fire him anyway. And you're going to want to give your new hire a chance to go out and get his own quarterback.
Sure.
And not have to inherit a kid that you drafted this year that he may not like.
Right.
So you could go with Caleb Williams and I would completely understand that. But basically all you did is upgrade at one position, where if you trade down a little bit, you could probably get, if you go down from like 1 to 5, just looking at like the NFL draft order right now.
So I got it right here. So 5 is actually the Chargers.
So hey, Jim Harbaugh, trade up and get JJ McCarthy, baby.
Yeah. Number 1.
But let's say that I'm trying to, let's say the Patriots at 3, or I'm trying to think. Look at these teams that need a quarterback.
Patriots
let's say the Falcons at 8 or something like that. Let's say one of these teams wants to trade up and get a quarterback wherever. And honestly, I would even trade if it was a team. Like, let's just say oh God, I don't even want to say it because that'll make me cry. Let's say the Saints at 14 or the Raiders at 13 decide to trade up, Vikings at 11, one of those teams, and you got to trade all the way down to 11. I'd be willing to do that if I'm the Bears. And the reason I say that is because I'm going to get a king's ransom in return.
Exactly. That's the key right there.
Yes.
I want your 2. I want your next year's 2. I want your next year's 1.
Yes, exactly. I'm getting next 2 ones. I'm getting a 2 in there.
100%.
And then now you got 9 and 11, 9 and 13. You're still going to walk out with franchise players. You're going to be able to get one of the top receivers at 9. The only thing is you're going to miss out on one of the top tackles. That would be the only.
Sure.
But even then, there's still some guys, Vince.
But yeah.
You're still going to have a chance at Fasano, who may fall out of the top 10 from what I've read. You may have a shot at J.C. Latham. I don't know that I'd take him that high, but, who knows? He may be more of a right tackle than a left tackle. You're still going to have a shot, like the Penn State kid. You could even trade down even more. And the Mims kid from Georgia, who's got a lot of ability. You need a left tackle. Or you say, hey, look, there's just not that guy on the board right now, so we'll look for that maybe in round 2. And there's an impact pass rusher on the board right now.
Sure.
You get – think about it. If you traded – let's say you traded down to 11 and you get 2 number 1s in the next couple of years and you get another 2 or 3, and you walk out of this draft with Roma Dunze or Malik Neighbors and Jared Verse, and you got Justin Fields a quarterback.
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Because and the thing too is if you have a creative offensive coordinator, even if you're picking 12, 13 and the top receivers have been taken, and Brock Bowers is sitting there. You could play Brock Bowers and Cole Kmet together.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, go watch some Patriots film.
Right.
If you don't know how to do that, you know what I mean?
They went too tight, or two tight ends.
Right. Because they were two very different players.
Correct.
Cole Kmet is a traditional tight end. Brock Bowers is more of that hybrid type of player.
Sure.
So you're in a position where, now I'd prefer a receiver, because you do have Cole Kmet.
Me too.
But I'm saying, let's say hypothetically the board doesn't fall your way and the guys you like or whatever. But I mean, I'd feel great about it. And then let's say at 9, let's say Joe Alt or Fashano falls to 9. You get one of those two. And then you're 13, 14, 15, you're a Keon Coleman type of guy or something like that. All right, cool.
Right.
So I just feel like I know you could get Caleb Williams. And to me, Caleb Williams is the only quarterback that I would consider in the top 5. I like Drake May. If this was a normal era of the NFL, Drake May's not a top 5 quarterback. He top 5 pick. I'm definitely not taking Jaden Daniels. I'm definitely not taking any of the other quarterbacks in the top 10. It's just those two guys that really be it for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that I'm as much as I like Caleb Williams, I'm not sure that I view him as the surefire, definitely going to be that franchise guy. And then if you miss out on him, now you wasted a chance with the number 1 pick to really improve your overall situation.
And you probably got rid of Justin Fields, obviously. Yeah. And so what did you get in return?
Right.
And what does that look like? And
I'll tell you something else right now, Vince. If the Bears really want to be bold and let's say you don't get enough value to trade out of number 1, stay at 1, take Marvin Harrison Jr.
Ooh.
Seriously. I mean, I just feel like taking a quarterback truly starts you over. I actually think, because I watched the Bears play against the Broncos this year.
Mm-hmm.
And for like half that game, you're like, dude, these guys look pretty good. And then the other half, you're like, they're a train wreck.
Right.
But there's some dudes to work with. And I just feel like you need, I don't care if Caleb Williams is everything we think he can be, you're still not a very good football team around him.
Correct. And that's the biggest issue, right? I mean, look, you can say what you want to about Justin Fields, and a lot of it would be accurate. But he's still been running behind a Patrick offensive line, or throwing, running, whatever. And his receiving core, his pass catchers have been, you know what I mean? Like, Moore is really good. Kmet is really good. You got to have more than that. You've got to have more depth from a pass catching situation. And so, you're not giving him everything he needs to be a winning quarterback in the NFL, in my opinion. And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. I'm trading the pick. I am getting the best available at the key positions that I need to fill, primarily offensive line and wide receiver. Those are the two biggest things that absolutely need to be upgraded.
Right.
If you want to give Justin Fields a legitimate chance to be your quarterback.
I mean, you could get a king's ransom, because you say, well, next year's draft class isn't that good. Okay, use that to your advantage.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. And then maybe maybe a team like the Patriots want to leap ahead of the number 2 team to get the quarterback they want, and you only trade down 3. You may not get a second number 1, maybe get a couple 2s. All right, cool. You're still going to get the best receiver or offensive lineman in the draft.
Correct.
All right, cool. I get a couple 2s, and so even if you don't get the King's ransom, because you only trade down 2 spots, or let's say the Commanders are worried about the Patriots leaping them, and they want to trade up 1 spot, and you get 2 2s. And I think you still you could probably get another 1, but let's say you only get 2 2s. Okay, you're falling to 2. You get 2 extra 2 picks, and you're going to get the guy you wanted anyway.
Right.
If you didn't want a quarterback. So that's what I would do if I was the Bears.
I'm with you 100%. Let's speak it into existence, baby. All right, we got till April to worry about it. All right, next one. Scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being 0 and 10 being the entire thing. How much of the NBA All-Star festivities did you watch? So all the, skills and
0.
All the different stuff.
Can I go 0? Can I go sub? Can I go below 1?
We go negatives at times. Yeah.
I didn't even know it was happening until after the fact.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. I'm right there with you. And the only reason I knew it was happening, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, is because last week I had to go down to Indianapolis for a school safety training. And it was everywhere, it was all the billboards, and it was all over the buildings, and there was flags, and it was this and that. I was like, I didn't even know the All-Star game was in Indianapolis, if I'm being honest. And so I was like, oh, the NBA All-Star game is going to be here next weekend. Had no idea.
It was in Indiana?
It
Seriously?
was in Indianapolis. So, exactly. Thank you. I still didn't watch a single second of it because I just don't care. And the fact that I don't even see what the final score was, but it was about 160 to 150 or something like that. That's ridiculous. That's not even a game.
I heard it was really bad. I've heard even people who, I saw it on Twitter. It's just really bad. And then like a guy that's not even in the NBA won the dunk contest. How'd that happen?
Yeah, seriously.
Like,
He's from the Osceola Magic or something like that. Like,
what does that even mean?
I don't even know. It's like the D League version. It's I believe it's the D League team for for the Magic.
Crazy. But like, shouldn't you have guys that actually play in the NBA in the NBA dunk contest? I'm just
those guys don't even want to participate anymore. What does that say? Do you remember when we were kids?
It says what it says is this is why I don't watch the NBA, and
Correct.
we can move on to the next question.
do you remember the dunk contest, the 3-point contest when we were kids?
The All-Star stuff when I was a kid.
That was must-see TV.
I've said this in the Dominique Jordan dunk contest. I still think Dominique should have won, but whatever. That was one of the greatest things I ever saw in my life. You know, and even when I got older, the Vince Carter.
Vince Carter.
I don't know any name. I can't even speak tonight. What the heck is going on?
Anything that has
the Vince Carter dunk contest, man.
That's about where it.
I mean, when I was a kid, I watched more NBA than any other sport. I love the NBA.
NBA in the 90s.
Was 80s. I'm an 80s kid. But 90s was early 90s. I've said this before. I have a lot more respect for Jordan's first 3 titles than I do his last 3.
Fair.
Because you had to beat a phenomenal Blazers team. You had to beat Barkley and KJ and Marley and the Suns. And who was the other one they beat in those 3 years? You beat the Suns. You beat the Blazers. Did you beat the Blazers twice? Oh, the Lakers. Duh.
It was always the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, it felt like.
Yeah, but they had to beat the Lakers.
Wow.
And so I mean that was some great basketball back then.
I love watching the finals and stuff in the 90s. Like I really, really enjoyed watching it. And then after that it was just like it was all downhill from there. But yeah, the Jordan era. The Jordan era for me was like that was
at your age. I can understand that.
Yeah,
because you're like 3 years younger than 4 years younger than me.
Yeah.
So like Bird and Magic were just kind of on the end of their careers as you were starting.
They were just behind. Like I didn't watch when they were the dudes.
Well, like Jordan's first title was against Magic.
Right.
It was Vlade Divac Lakers. Not Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Lakers. Like I had to watch the Celtics beat and then lose 2 twice. Beat once, lose 2 twice when I was a kid. But the NBA is just not a fun sport to watch anymore. Like they were starting to get to the point where I was really enjoying it with some of those Warrior teams that were coming along, but then it just like whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Could not agree more with that. All right, here we go. Next question. If you were the GM or the owner of the Athletics and where are you moving your team? Utah, Vegas, or are you staying in Oakland?
That's a great question. I would definitely not stay in Oakland. Like that's off the table.
That's
like
fair.
Completely off.
I threw that out there on just like, do you want to try to stay where you're at? But yeah.
I don't know enough about support for Utah to be able to say for sure Utah. I'd be very intrigued by it.
Sure.
I'd want to know what kind of package the city's going to give us. I'd want to know that. I'd want to know because Salt Lake City is actually a pretty decent sized TV market. And, there'd be less, say, distractions during the year in Salt Lake City than there would be in Las Vegas.
I would say completely opposite.
So, what?
I'd say completely opposite. I mean, as far as like,
oh yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
The vibe, yeah.
So I mean, I would be very intrigued by the Salt, because I assume it's going to be Salt Lake City.
I believe so. I just keep hearing Utah. Yeah,
I'd be very intrigued because that's a very loyal fan base. I just don't know if baseball is something they care about. Maybe they do. So I'd be very intrigued by that. I'd want to hear about the city reception because I just think that'd be something new. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like you're kind of diving into a fan base that they may love you if you do it right. Like, hey, they finally have a baseball team. So yeah, it'd be interesting. That's one that I would strongly consider. Or you could be like the Rockies and have a decent following, but it's always going to be a football town. And,
Sure.
but like in Denver, though, you've got the Broncos, you've got the Nuggets, you've got the Avalanche, and Salt Lake City, you've got the University of Utah. That's it.
Yeah.
So
the Jazz,
where
are they at? Right? They're in Salt
are
Lake,
they in Salt Lake City?
I see. This NBA talk.
Jazz.
Yeah.
No, they're not in Utah anymore. Are they?
I think so.
Didn't they move? I thought they went down to New Orleans.
They were in New Orleans back in the day, but
And
now they're up in Utah.
Hold on a second. I'm gonna look at this because this just tells you how
they were in New Orleans when Pistol Pete was on the team.
I thought they moved again. I thought they became the Pelicans. Isn't that the team that left to become the Pelicans? Did they get a team back, or am I just thinking of somebody else?
No, that's somebody else.
Okay.
That's somebody else. That may or may not have been the Charlotte team. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that used to be the Hornets is what I'm looking at here. So yeah, they were the Hornets. That was the Hornets.
It shows you how much I know about the NBA. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't care at all. I don't want to waste the.
Here's a cool thing though. I didn't know that Trajan Langdon is the GM of the New Orleans Pelicans.
I didn't know that either.
Hey, he's a pretty good player back in the day.
You learn something new.
So yeah,
I have
Utah's in Salt Lake City. Yes,
I have seen renderings of what they want to do with the baseball stadium. They basically want to build the stadium and then like build basically a whole like experience around it. You know what I mean? And it's intriguing. I will give them that. Now then you look at the Vegas side, and they're talking about tearing down one of the casinos and putting the stadium like right on the strip.
No, I would want no part of that.
Like that is a very interesting.
No, as an owner, I'd probably like that. But like to me, I don't know if I don't know, man. I don't know if a sport that plays every single day is going to be the one that like necessarily is the best for Vegas. Like I think Vegas is going to it could be great for like that like NFL.
Yeah,
play one day a week.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how I'd feel about Vegas, man.
I get where you're coming from. I get it.
Ladies are starting to they were down 5. They're now up 3. They just went up 40-37 in the third quarter. Just update on that.
Okay. I like where that's coming.
Right. KK just scored in the paint. So all
right. Last question for rapid fire. Buy or sell the fact that Best Buy is removing all physical media from its stores. So like CDs, DVDs, like anything you can actually take home, and why it's all gone.
All right. Do you want my personal buy or sell, or looking at it from a business standpoint?
This is a nostalgia question. That's
from a nostalgia question. Yes. Sell the crap out of this thing. It makes me very mad.
Yes.
From running a business standpoint, it makes sense.
Sure.
I mean, like I can't even buy a laptop anymore with a thing for a disc anymore to play like old videos and stuff. I'm like, how the heck do I watch these things? Like,
I know, right?
My computer doesn't play them. My laptop doesn't play them. Like, how the heck am I supposed to
get like an
coaching video?
You got to get like an external drive and like,
this is the worst.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it. Business standpoint, buy nostalgia. Everything's on our phones now and all this smart. I hate it.
So do I.
There's nothing like, man, just popping in that disc and playing it, and then a movie's good when you can't watch it anymore because it starts skipping.
Yes.
Like that's a good movie right there, man. I played the heck out of this thing.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
I read that and I was like, seriously? Like, this is yet another thing that I'm going to have to explain to my young kids about how it used to be. You know what I mean?
It's like now, like I'm at home. I want to watch a movie. I got it on demand, and right.
Kids will never know.
I want to go buy it, and so I buy it here, and you know what I mean. Right. And it's just like, can't be stolen, can't get scratched.
This is true.
So it makes and here's the other thing too is the cost is so much greater because I don't have to, I have to package. I don't have to pay for the overhead of the discs and the things around them and the packaging, and then ship them, and then I got to pay this guy to sell it. And no, I just look, here's the deal. So why would I, because it's not just Best Buy, but like, if you're a company, like, why would I make DVDs anymore?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. 100%.
So
100%. Yeah. I mean, just, and I know that this is not the same as Best Buy because Best Buy is someplace where you go and purchase it. And there's nothing like purchasing a new movie and like ripping it open and watching it, like nothing like it. But like, I know I'm going in the Wayback Machine, but like going to Blockbuster on a Friday night, and your parents finally said, okay, or you got a date or whatever. And like, hey, let's go to Blockbuster. We'll get a movie. We'll get some popcorn. Like, there was no better argument you could have with your sibling about what movie you were going to rent or, no better feeling than, renting a movie with your girl and going home and watch. Like, that whole thing is just gone. It's just gone, and it stinks.
I miss being able to go to Blockbuster and do all.
Yes.
Yeah, I do. I mean, that was
travel
fun.
the new edition wall, and you walk all the way around the store, and you're trying, oh, I want to see that. Oh, I want to see that. Oh, are you kidding me? They don't have this one. Like, yeah, man, I miss it, and I know that sounds crazy, but like that was a cool Friday night, man.
It was
Saturday night.
Although, I mean, but let's be honest, we remember that part. We forget the part where you go and you're like, they're freaking out of the movie I wanted to get.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, like,
Get frustrated.
There's that too. Now it's like I don't have to worry about it. But no, I mean, there's things like that. You get the little, popcorn there. You get your candy.
Yeah, one-stop shopping, man.
Yeah, I mean, I miss. There is one Blockbuster still left. It's still in existence. It's out in the Northwest, Oregon, I think. Yeah. Like part of me wants to go there, but
I know
to visit it. But then I'd have to go to Oregon. And, I just got to make sure it's not too close to Portland. There's parts of Oregon that are gorgeous. Like,
oh my gosh, absolutely.
But then you just got to stay out of Portland. But yeah, I mean, nostalgia wise, man, it's a hard sell.
Me too.
Business wise, it makes a ton of sense.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Like, just for example, this afternoon we're kind of sitting around, had the day off of school, it's President's Day, and my wife was telling me she found out about the movie Radio, right, with Cuba Gooding Jr. and Ed Harris. We've all seen it. She's for some reason she just found out about it, and she's like, I want to watch that movie. So I'm looking for it. Okay, it's on Prime Video, but you gotta rent it. It's like $3.99 or something. I was like, want to watch it? She's like, yep. I go, boop, and we're watching it like instantly. Like, no driving to the store. Like, I mean, it is what it is. But yeah,
they just forced a turnover, took it to the house. They're now up 7. Hannah scored at the rim on a fast break, so they're up 7 now.
Oh, that was a foul too. Yeah, that was a foul.
Yeah,
should have called it. Should have been 3 points.
Yeah, but it is a lot of those things. It just makes me sad that it's not like it was when I was a kid. Some of the things I'm like, I kind of like though. I like get through the nostalgia. I like the fact that I don't have to go to.
I get it.
When I want to watch a movie and I don't have to leave the house, it's cool. But then when I think of the nostalgia, I'm like, I miss all that.
Yeah.
They're up 9 now. They're on a roll.
This is good. This is good news. This is good news.
That's what I said, man. They need this win. I mean, Duke's a solid team,
For sure.
For sure. So yeah, that was a good one, Vince. Is that all you got for me?
That's all I got, man. That's the list,
man.
That's the list.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
I can't believe I forgot the Jazz. I could have swore the Jazz had moved, but there
was a lot of movement from because I think there's the Charlotte Bobcats, and then it was like there was a lot of movement there.
Right, the Seattle Supersonics are no longer a thing, and
the Rain Man.
They're the Oklahoma State. They're the Oklahoma City Thunder now, right?
Yeah,
all of it's just
nonsense.
Yes, it is. So
yes, it is.
Yeah, but it shows you how much I pay attention to the NBA, man.
Fair enough. Now, do we have some questions for a
couple? We don't need to do a whole new segment. We didn't get a whole lot of them, so let's just get a couple of them here.
Let's roll through them
and we'll include them with the rapid fire.
From Andre, whom of the current wide receiver recruits you think Notre Dame needs to make it an elite class?
Taylor's the one for me. I mean, get Taylor and Derek Meadows, or if you could somehow figure out a way to get those two. I mean, I have Elijah Burris as a top 150 player. Derek Meadows is not a top 150, not a top 100 player right now, but he has elite tools. It's about the upside. And then Taylor to me is a top 50 player. I don't know if this can be an elite class. I don't know that it can be. But what I think is it can be a really good class that complements the last 2 years really well.
Fair enough.
That's what I think. If you get Derek Meadows, he's a completely different type of player than you've had in the past, than you have on the roster right now. If you get, I've already said Elijah Burris and Shaun Terry are very limited. Those skill sets very limited on the current roster. And then Taylor's just a dude.
Yeah.
So that'd be the dream class for me.
Okay.
If as far as what's out there, but I don't know that I still don't know that it would be elite to me at this point in time. So
it meets some needs though. I mean, it does meet some needs. So
it does.
Yeah. Jerry has a question.
I think this is a Michigan fan.
Okay.
So
cool. Welcome.
Appreciate the question.
Yeah. He says, is CJ Carr going to be able to compete for the job? Obviously meaning the starting job.
In 2024, no, because no one's going to compete for the job in 2024. Riley Leonard's going to be their starting quarterback in 2024.
Right.
But Jerry, if you're talking about like down the road, absolutely. I mean, early returns on CJ are impressive.
Yes.
I mean, it's one of those, from everything I've heard so far, he's everything that we hoped he would be.
Yep.
That's
and
that's kind of where it's at.
The competition obviously is going to be for the number 2 job. I think there's going to be a legitimate competition for the number 2 job.
Should be. There better be.
Yeah. I want there to be, and I think there should be, and I think there will be. So I think that part of the competition will be fierce. I mean, that's a 3-man race. And I think I guess it really wouldn't surprise me if any of the 3 of them got the number 2 spot. Let's see what happens, obviously. And I want to see these guys at practice, but I think that's going to be a legit competition. And that will then kind of set up what 25 is going to look like too.
Right.
It's not going to cement anything, but it's definitely going to set up what that competition is going to look like. And so I'm actually looking forward to that competition. There's not a lot of times where you're like, oh man, wonder who the number 2 is going to be. But I think this year, I think that's actually going to be a legit competition that I'm going to be excited to see. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep, 100%. Because it's not about now; it's about what's going to happen a year from now.
Yeah,
how do they position themselves? Right there with you on that one.
Yes.
But CJ is going to have a shot, but he's going to have to beat out Steve and Kenny because those are talented players as well.
100%. 100%.
There's nobody I'm writing. Even Steve Angeli, I'm not writing off because he's always going to be the more experienced guy. And he's that gamer kid that you just don't want to write off.
Absolutely.
That's the reality of it.
I'd be honest with you, though. I mean, you and I were sitting there watching the ball come out of CJ Carr's hand during the bowl prep practice.
Well,
it's just like,
I'll never forget that, Vince. Was it you that said this? I couldn't remember if you said it to me or if I said it to you. I thought you said it to me. Where we're watching and it's Steve and Gino throwing this way, and it's CJ and Kenny Minchie essentially throwing this way.
Yeah,
I thought it was you that said it.
It was. I think
it
was. Yeah,
the ball looks a lot different coming this way than it does going that way.
Yes, that's what I said. That's it. And you just start laughing, and because you and I were sitting right next to each other while they were kind of warming up.
Yeah, it's just like, man, that's pretty. Man, that is a pretty thing coming out of both Kenny and CJ. I mean, it's just like
it's just different. I mean, it's just different, and you don't have to be a really good analyst of film or analyst of talent to just see that the ball comes out different. Bottom line. So it's gonna, like I said, it is going to be a great competition because we've seen what Steve Angeli can do in a game, and he's a gamer, and he plays to win, and I love that.
Right.
But he just
there's just things.
Right.
Those other dudes are just different. Kenny and CJ are just different.
Yep.
There's no doubt.
Yep.
No doubt. I have another quarterback question we'll jump down here, Vince, from Mr.
Beautiful.
2.0.
Says, do you know if Leonard consulted Mike Elko about Notre Dame? Be interested if no one has asked him about that yet.
Well, Shaun talked to him about, Shaun Stiers wrote about this, and I don't know if this was a question that Shaun asked or if somebody else asked, but he talked about how him and Coach Elko talked about Notre Dame, but I don't know that it was a situation where he was consulting him because I think Riley already kind of had an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like I said, this is a kid whose, I think, grandfather went to Notre Dame.
Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
I don't know that he needed any selling on it. I know they've talked about Notre Dame, but I don't know that he needed to be consulted on it. I think once Notre Dame said, we want you, it was we've said this all along, like, guys, it's not he's going to visit Auburn. And guys, Notre Dame. Like,
yeah, you told me that a long time. You're like, yeah, this is.
I started laughing because like all these people freaking out. Oh, he's going to visit Ohio State and Auburn, and I called you and I was like, dude, people just panic for nothing sometimes.
Right, it's like,
guys going not happening. It's been a done deal for a while.
Yes, exactly.
So
and it was a done deal for longer than I had really anticipated. To be honest with you,
yeah. So I remember your reaction when I told you, you were like, seriously? So
yes,
dude,
I remember that night very well.
Yeah,
actually,
you're pretty fired up.
After a show or something
you're pretty fired up.
Like, really? Okay, let's go.
Yeah, he's really good. He's really good. I was watching some film of him again today, and I was like, yeah, this kid's really good.
Mm-hmm. I've rewatched the Duke Notre Dame game multiple times. I need to watch more actual Duke footage, but I've watched that game.
I got a couple games cut up. If you're all 22, so next time you come over, I can get those too.
Gotta make that happen. All right, Salty says
Marshall just had a sweet take to the rim. They're now up 11.
Marshall, really?
Yeah. Oh, I mean,
Okay.
it was like she cut to the rim, they dished her the ball, and then she made a really nice move to score, and then
Yep.
Sonya just ripped it. So they got a shot to really break this one open.
That's great. I'm a little
So,
behind you, so as soon as you tell me there's a good play, I like check it out, and
nice.
that was a nice move. Nice little up fake at the free throw line, and just went right around that girl.
Yep.
That was nice. Salty Virginia Peanuts, Brian, you said that Scary Terry fills a gap in a player with his skills. How many other wide receiver skill sets does Notre Dame lack currently?
Well, not as many now that the freshman class is going to show up and the portal class is going to show up. I mean, one thing they were lacking to me was a true perimeter burner. Like Tobias was a big play weapon, but Tobias was more of that tall, long strider type of kid.
Yeah.
He wasn't a 4.3, low 4.4 guy.
Right.
So he could stretch the field. He averaged over 20 yards a catch last year, but he did it in a different way. Chris Tyree was a burner. He's 5'9". Mm-hmm. So it's just like it's just limited on the certain things that you can do. Well, now you add 6'2" Cam Williams, who's a low 4.4 guy. You add Chris Mitchell, who's 6'1" and is a 4.4 guy. Don't say that to Chris, because he doesn't like to hear that he's a 4.3 to him. But I don't see 4.3 speed. I see 4.4 speed on film. But that's still moving.
That's still moving.
For 6'1" guy. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to get Deion Colsey back, who brings some of that size. So you have a little bit more of that now. What you don't have after 2024 is a lot of size. Micah Gilbert, 6'2", 205. I think he'll play at 215, 220. It's all said and done. Cam, 6'2". Jaden Thomas is 6'1.5". But, Deion's at best only got a year left after this. Bo Collins is done after this. So he's there. So that's why there's some need for a Derek Meadows. And that's also partly why they like Jerome Bettis. He's 6'3". He's going to be a boundary guy. He's going to be 210, 215 at least. So size is something looking forward that you're going to need more of. And they want separators. And that's, again, Cam Williams is that. Elijah Burris is that. So you're bringing in some of those skill sets with that. Chris Mitchell is that. So they've added a lot to the table now that they did not have going into the offseason.
Yeah,
at that spot. So the portal class and the incoming freshman class has added a lot for Notre Dame.
No doubt. And they're still going to have to plug some holes, obviously, with the transfer portal and things like that, but fewer holes than obviously they had to fill this offseason. I mean, that was priority number one, frankly, was getting those holes filled at wide receiver, because you had a mass exodus that you probably weren't anticipating a couple of months prior, right? So, that won't be the issue, I wouldn't think, a year from now. Yeah. So we'll just have to see kind of how that goes. But absolutely.
Yep, good question. Got one from David Pantaloni.
Ooh, I like that name. That's an Italian name. All right, here we go. Is there
from my Italian co-host?
That's all I'm saying. Is there a comparison that can be made, open field running and size, between Shaun Terry and Dylan Edwards?
Size, yes. Open elusiveness, yes. Suddenness, yes. Dylan Edwards is a legit 4.3, low 4.4 guy. So just that home run speed, no. Shaun Terry is probably about at least an inch, maybe 2 inches taller than Dylan Edwards, who's only like 5'8", 5'9". Shaun's probably 5'10", so at least an inch taller. So there's some crossover there, yes. But Shaun's also a more natural receiver right now. Dylan's a running back that's kind of converting to that type of position. Yeah. But yeah, there's some crossover as far as what he adds to the table. I'll say this, there would not have been as big of a need for Shaun Terry if they would have been able to land Dylan Edwards and keep him.
And that's fair.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd still think you'd probably go get him because Dylan would be a junior.
Yeah,
exactly. He'd be a junior when this class shows up. But you wouldn't have that immediate, oh gosh, we got to get that in this class. Because you'd have him, then you'd have Jordan Faison, you'd have KK Smith. You'd just be a little bit of a different deal.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Good question.
Brent Smith, are you concerned about Bowen playing baseball, thereby losing the opportunity to develop as a top middle linebacker?
Well, again, Drake's not. I've dug into this. Drake's thing is, if it comes down to I have a baseball commitment or a football commitment, I'm told that it's always going to be football, and the baseball team knows that. Okay. Like, he's a football player first, so Drake's not going to miss practices. He's not going to. They have I asked this of someone earlier. They have a baseball game at home the day of the spring game.
Okay,
he's going to be at the spring game. He's going to play in the spring game. So, whereas Jordan Faison's a little different because he's actually a dude on the lacrosse team.
He's a starter. I mean, yeah, he's definitely a dude. Yeah, right.
So as I said before, it's the practices are not the issue. The issue is, will he be able to do the other off the field work? Go to practice. You got to then hustle to go to baseball practice, right? That's my concern. I'm not saying he can't do it, but that's the thing Drake has to be aware of is, okay, I'm missing this extra time, this over here at times, while Kingston and Jaden and Jalen and these guys are in the film room with Coach Bulla going over film. I'm at baseball practice, right? So you got to figure out a way to kind of supplement that.
Right.
So, but he's not going to miss any on-field reps opportunities because of baseball, which is big.
Yeah.
Which is big.
It's huge.
So when I was told that, I felt a lot better about it. That what I also believe he won't be traveling if there's football practice. I was also told that. So like if they have a road game, now I could be wrong on this, but I think this was correct in what I was told. So like if they have a 3-game road trip and they got a Notre Dame football practice, he won't miss the practice.
Okay.
He won't travel for the road.
And that'll also give him an opportunity to do a lot of those off the field things that you were just talking about,
get caught
because
up on
the
stuff.
baseball team won't be in town.
Right.
And so there won't be practices and stuff to worry about and things of that nature. So
right.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Look, it's a tough juggling act. It is, especially when you're attempting to be a first-time starter and basically the quarterback of the defense. I mean, middle linebacker is a big position both mentally and physically. And if you're expecting him to be that guy, be that dude, and we are, that's a tough juggling act. And he's obviously a piece of the Notre Dame baseball team. I think he was a pinch runner.
Yeah, his only action in the opening series was he came off the bench to pinch run and scored.
There you go.
That's it.
He scored from
second
base
on
the
field
base hit.
Yet. Right.
Right. And it was it was huge. It was the go-ahead run and all that, but
the thing is, Drake could be a much better baseball player if he focused on it alone.
Oh, he could be
football is his baby, from what I'm told.
Right. And that's the decision that's been made that everybody has agreed upon and everybody's on the same page. And that's the most
I'll say this
piece.
What I have learned in the last couple days is Drake 100% knows the opportunity in front of him. And he understands what he has to do from a juggling standpoint, and he is prepared to do it. So that's he just has to, stay healthy and all that. Sure. But I'm not concerned with playing baseball at all.
Yeah. Right.
In theory, it's just you got to make sure you handle it the right way. And his position's a little tougher than just playing wide receiver.
Correct.
Right where you're just an athlete.
100%.
Right. Because there's so much more you can do in the summer with a quarterback and a receiver to get caught up that you can't miss tackling. You can't make up tackling drills that you miss in the spring during the summer. Right. If Jordan Faison has to miss a few practices, he'll be fine. It's a different deal. It'd be like being a quarterback and missing 3. Like that's what middle linebacker is. It's like missing 3 practices as a quarterback.
Right.
And you're the guy that gets everybody lined up.
Exactly.
Like, I have no doubt. I have no issue with Drake's. He'll be big enough. He'll be fast enough. He'll be athletic enough. He'll be powerful enough. It's here and here. Can he pick it up quickly as a redshirt freshman, basically, or actually be a sophomore because he played a ton of special teams? Can he absorb the defense in a way that then allows him to communicate that and making sure that the defense is getting lined up appropriately? That's what he's going to have to do.
Yeah.
Right. Those are the question marks. And because that can then slow down the body.
Right.
But we're going to get to a point in time here in a couple of years where we're going to be looking back on people who said Drake wasn't athletic enough and just kind of laugh and get a good hearty chuckle out of that one. That's the reality of it.
Right. Agreed.
But
it's still a legit question, Brent. And I do appreciate that because it's still a lot to tackle. I mean, and no pun intended, because he is attempting to do something that really nobody has done because he's a middle linebacker.
Yeah.
Everybody else that's done it has been a wide receiver.
Well, and somebody just said like Samardzija handled it well. No, 2 things. Number one, Samardzija was a receiver. Number 2, he was a pitcher.
Yeah.
Like Cole Kmet was a pitcher.
Right.
So you have to be there every day.
It's completely different.
Yeah, it's very different.
Look, Cole Kmet, I'm sorry, Jeff Samardzija could have been a major league center fielder. He was,
he was really athletic.
We've seen his athleticism on the football field. He could have been that, and he was really good in high school. He decided to be a PO, pitcher only, because of his football commitment and because he knew he could juggle both. It's just a completely different situation.
Yeah, receivers. So, yeah, you're right, Vince. It is such a different animal. It really is.
Right.
I'm actually going to look something up real quick because I'm curious about this because I believe, yeah, Jeff Samardzija hit 3 home runs and 14 doubles in his Major League Baseball career.
He was an athlete, dude. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, he could have been an everyday position player. He just
Yeah.
couldn't do that and play football. That's
Right.
just not. You can't do it.
Right. And yeah, agree.
Right. So, it is what it is. The only. Well, we don't need to get into that, but
yeah,
he's the first one. Drake Bowen is the first one to attempt to do it in the volume of football and baseball. It's a volume situation. So
yeah, I want to address this one too because this is part of it as well.
Cool. Mr. 2.0, is there a realization that KVA is the better middle linebacker and Drake might have a future in baseball?
No, there's not that realization at all. I look by Drake. Do you think Drake feels that way? No. I mean, first of all, he's never even practiced with Kingston. So why would he even think that? Number one. Right. Number two, if you knew Drake Bowen at all, you would never question if Drake Bowen thinks someone else is better than he is. Like, no, he doesn't. And the other thing, too, is I think we're also all wrongly assuming that Kingston Viliama-Asa is just a Mike linebacker.
Right.
Like, there's a chance that someday we're going to see him and Drake Bowen playing beside each other. Mm-hmm. Not battling for the same. If they're battling at Mike and it's just obvious they're the two best linebackers, Kingston can easily slide over to Will and play Will. Like, agreed. I won't even be shocked if Kingston started at Will, like meaning starts out
playing that position,
playing that
right,
position.
Right. Yeah.
And then maybe cross trains a little bit. But no, I definitely don't think there's that realization that anyone thinks it's just a given that Kingston's going to be better than Drake. If anything, it's like, how do we get them together on the field?
Yeah, agreed.
More than the other way around. So, yeah, and look, it's always that shiny new toy.
Sure.
I mean, that's kind of how it is. Like, oh, I had somebody that you guys don't talk about CJ Carr anymore. You talk about Deuce Knight. It's a recruiting show, and CJ Carr is a player on the current team.
He's on the roster.
Right.
He's here.
So when we're doing a recruiting show, but it's like, are you going to tell me that I'm not talking about CJ Carr enough? But it's just, that's the thing. It's just like, it's the shiny new toy. But there's a lot of people in the chat. So, Deuce is going to be the guy who's going to beat CJ out and wins. Like, really? Like, we're just going to and then when Deuce comes and they sign some kid in 26 or 27, Deuce is going to get, I get that's just how it is. But, and again, that doesn't mean that I don't think Kingston's a stud. I do. I had Kingston graded out higher coming out of high school than I had Drake coming out because he was more advanced, where Drake was always kind of that really athletic guy that was learning to be a football player. He was a dominant football player, but I mean, like the nuances of playing linebacker. I mean, as a junior, he was just blitz every time and come off the edge and just dominate. He has to learn sort of the nuances of the game. I talked to someone tonight who said that J.D. Bertrand took Drake under his wing all year this year, which is going to be huge.
That's huge
for him. But like Drake's upside is greater than Kingston's, in my opinion. Kingston has got the higher floor because he's just such a natural player. And he played at St. John Bosco, so he's played against way different competition where Drake was always the best athlete on the field.
Oh, and it wasn't close.
Kingston's wasn't necessarily the best athlete on his team.
Right.
He was the best player on his team, but he wasn't even the best athlete at linebacker. Have you seen Kamori House? Like, that's a dude. The kid that signed with Washington at linebacker from Bosco. Now, Kingston's a better player, but that kid's a better athlete. So I think there's a chance that someday we may see the two of them playing side by side. But the other thing about Kingston too is, let's say that you've got Drake and Jaden Alsbury as your starters. Kingston can basically be what Tavon Coney was in 2017, which is you led the team in tackles as the rotation guy that played both spots, or you could have Kingston at Will and Drake at Mike, and Jaden Alsbury could be the guy that rotates in and plays both spots like Tavon Coney did that year. So, because remember in 2017, I think your top 4 leading tacklers were all linebackers. I'm going to go look that up. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. It was at least your top 3, but I thought it was their top 4 were all linebackers because one of them was your rover. I think James Onwualu. Let me look that up real quick, Vince. Yeah, Drew Tranquil. It was Drew Tranquil, not James left the year before. Tavon Coney led the team in tackles, wasn't a full-time starter. Niles Morgan was number 2. Drew Tranquil, the rover, was number 3. Greer Martini was number 4. You had 4 linebackers and a 3 linebacker defense that were top of your team tackles because they had that rotation going.
Right.
And when you've got Drake Bowen, Kingston Williams-Maasa, Jaden Alsbury, Jalen Sneed, Bodie Cahoon, all those type of guys, you're going to be in situations where you'd be foolish to only play 2 guys.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to see some of that as well, Vince, is where we're going to see more of a rotation than we saw this past season, which we honestly shouldn't have seen more of a rotation this past year because there was such a difference between fifth-year senior J.D. Bertrand and true freshman Drake Bowen from a knowledge of the defense standpoint. As I said before, the defense wasn't on the field enough this year for them to need to play multiple guys.
Right. Wasn't necessary. Wasn't necessary. Yeah. I agree with that.
So Kingston's an excellent player. Heck of a player.
Gosh, I would love to see both of them on the field
but
together.
so's Drake and so's Jaden Alsbury.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
yeah, for sure.
That's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's a very good problem to have.
Yep. Chris W. Is Ben Morrison a first-round pick in 2025?
It's a little too early to tell, but I would probably say yes. I mean, I think right now I don't know that there's a better corner than him and Will Johnson. I think they're the 2 best corners coming back in college football this year.
And if you're
for Benjamin, it's just going to be how well he runs. Somebody in the chat earlier said that he likes him, but he thinks he's small. The kid's 6 foot tall, you know, and he's up to, I think, 185 now, but he's 6 feet tall and he's got pretty long arms, so size is not an issue. Ben was not physical enough this year. That's my takeaway. That's where he's going to have to get better. But let's be honest, there's some NFL teams that don't care about that as long as you're physical as a route runner. And so, he's got a chance. But the thing for Ben is how well does he run? I think that's probably the one question that teams might have about him beyond just you got to be more physical. But again, true sophomore,
right?
Does he really have that speed to run on the outside with top guys? Is he a 4.4? Is he a 4.54 guy? Or is he a 4.48 guy? That could kind of play a little bit in. If he's fringe first round, that could play into it. But yeah, I think as long as he continues to progress, I do think he's a first round player. Yes. No foul there? Are you kidding me?
The refereeing has gone heavy to the other side.
Yeah. Maddie just got mugged, like press charges mugged down low, and they didn't call anything.
Yeah.
So anyway. All right, let's get to some more questions here.
All right. Craig D., who is the one Notre Dame player you wish you could have seen from the past?
Oh gosh. You know what? I'm gonna give an ode and a shout out to my guy Loose Emoji. The way that Loose Emoji talked about Ross Browner, I would have loved to have watched Ross Browner play. Lou just talked about he just loved Ross Browner. So yeah, I'm going to go with him. Because I can go back and watch film of Tim Brown on YouTube and things like that. And I'm sure I watched him play because my dad watched Notre Dame. It was the year before the 88. I just don't remember it really. I remember the Michigan State game a little bit, but I just don't remember a lot of Tim Brown at Notre Dame. I remember Tim Brown for the Raiders. So Ross Browner would be the one for me.
You know, I didn't really see anybody in person until, kind of 92, 93. So there's obviously a lot of options prior to that time that I would have loved to see in person. I would have loved to see, Chris Zorich in person, just kind of the scrappy, get after it, hard nose.
It was fun to watch.
Like that. Well, he would have been a lot of fun to watch. Frankly, that 88 defense would have been a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, it was.
That would have been,
go watch YouTube clips, man. I'm telling you, you'd love it.
Just to watch those guys just fly to the football. I mean, that defense, like I've read, Lou Holtz, I think, had a book. I'm looking at my bookshelf right now, trying to figure out what the name of it was, but it's about the 88 season, basically. And just reading about that defense was was awesome.
And they had that nice blend of veteran players like Wes Pritchett and Frank Stams with young guys like George Williams and Chris Zorich and Todd Light. I think was a sophomore on that team, and just guys like that. So it was a really special team, man. It was just a special team. So
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
It really was.
Good question.
And somebody said Joe Montana, but Joe Montana wasn't a great player in college. I know he won a title, but he wasn't a great player. He became a great player in the NFL. He was a 3rd round draft pick for a reason. You know? So he was good, but he wasn't Joe Montana like he was for the 49ers.
No, not even close. No.
Yeah.
Nope. All right, Mr. 2.0. Do you know if we talked about this one, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, we did. My bad.
Nope, all good. Roger Dodger, is Love the lock for starting running back?
No, he's not. Like, and here's the thing. I don't care who starts. I think
Right.
what we'll have is we'll see both. We'll see two running backs start at different times, depending on the personnel package that Notre Dame starts a game with. So like we saw at receiver at times, like, you know, they'd have a 12 personnel package. So like the third receiver wouldn't get a start. You know, it's like, whatever. There's going to be certain packages that we're going to see where, okay, they started 12 personnel because they wanted to run this certain concept in the first couple plays. And that's a Jadarian Price concept. Or, hey, they're going 11 personnel and Jeremiah's your 11 personnel. I mean, that may not be the case. It may be the other way around. And so, you know, to me, I think we could see some things like that. And it'll be a different guy starting the game. But the reality is and that's how it was in 2022. I mean, Audric would be the first guy out there sometimes. And, you know, there was a couple times where Chris Tyree was the first guy out there, or Logan was the first guy out there. So those are the things that I think we're going to see from this group, in my opinion. So
yeah,
he's a lock to be one part of one. There's going to be a 1A, 1B at running back. He's a lock to be part of that, barring injury.
Yes,
Price.
Absolutely.
That's what it's going to be.
Yep.
And we're going to have these battles in the chat. There's going to be Team Jeremiah, Team Jadarian. And I'm going to be like, dude, I'm Team Notre Dame because they both play for Notre Dame, and they're going to be dudes. It's just like the Logan Diggs, Audric Estime thing. There were some Notre Dame fans that convinced themselves Audric Estime or Logan Diggs wasn't that good of a player because they just loved Audric Estime. I'm like, okay, you can still love Audric Estime and still respect Logan's game. You can think Audric's a much better player and still respect Logan's game. And that's how it's going to be with Jadarian and Jeremiah. There's going to be some people that love Jeremiah and they don't want to see Jadarian play, or they love Jadarian, don't want to see Jeremiah. They're both dudes. Right. And I'm excited they're both going to play because they're both excellent players. And I'm looking forward to seeing, how do you figure out ways to use them together?
Correct.
That's going to be the fun part for me.
And last time I checked, there's 8 starting positions in the backfield, according
yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
And look, Coach McCullough has done a great job of managing those running back egos. He's done a great job because there's a lot of talent in that room. There's a lot of talent in that room, and those guys are all cheering on each other because everybody has a role. They embrace their role. They know their role. And so whoever wins those roles, man, let's go, because there is so much talent in that room. I'm good with whoever the associate head coach puts on the field at whatever the, scenarios calls for. There's just so much talent in that room. But Jeremiah Love's going to get a ton of carries. I mean, he's really good. He's really, really good. I want to see them expand his role. Like, that's what I want to see. So
agree.
Mr. 2.0, specifically, how does Mike Denbrock figure it out?
Well, so one is you've got to figure out how to use them together. Right. I mean, actually, number one is you got to find a healthy rotation, right? Like, how do you use both of them? Because here's the danger. You can get to the point where you use one guy more and the other guy can't get into a rhythm because it's 3 series and then 1, 3 series and then 1. I don't see that. You also can get too much of a rotation where neither of them get into a rhythm. So you got, and that's not an easy juggling act, to be honest with you. Make it seem like it's easy. It's really not. So you've got to figure that out. And then beyond that, it's like, okay, when Jeremiah's in the game, we got to call to his strengths. When Jadarian's, we got to call to his strengths without getting into a situation, Vince, where you become, it's too easy to tell what they're going to do when one guy's on the field compared to the other. That's the other thing too. But then the other part of it too, Vince, is, and as Roger Dodger pointed out, there will be some riding the hot hand going on as part of the conversation as well. Let's be honest about that. Like the plan may be we're going to go 50-50, but man, we came out and every time Jeremiah touched the ball, he was going for 15. Like, you better ride that sucker. Or Jadarian's just ripping this team up. Like, because sometimes backs can get hot too, man, where it's just like, it's like playing running back sometimes is like being a great shooter, where it's like, dude, I just saw it, just everything, or like a quarterback who just gets hot. Why does because man, I just knew what was happening. I could just anticipate air. Like, I just felt running backs are like that, man. Like, dude, I am feeling it. I am reading this defense like a book. I am making cuts, and you're hot. Right. And you ride that. then the final piece is how do we use them together? And that's going to be the really interesting part is how do I use them together? And the game's over. Notre Dame won by 8. Huge win for the women's basketball team, by the way. But that's what I'm going to be interested in seeing, Vince, is number one, when they're in the game, how do you play both guys and play the third or whoever else is going to be part of the rotation without preventing you got to make sure you're not getting making sure that they're not. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. You've got to do your job to make sure that you're not preventing them from getting into a flow. Multiple guys from getting into a flow, right? Number one is know your role. Guys got to know their role and practice that role. But number two is you've got to be smart with your rotations and play calls, right? Because if you're putting a guy in every other series, but then in that series you're not getting him the ball, then he's gonna have a tougher time getting into a rhythm. And then, as I said, the last piece, is like, okay, play to their strengths. This guy may be better in the pass game. This guy may be better in this type of stuff. Right. But I really, really, really want to see these two guys play together. I think that's going to be a really fun part of this is how do I get Jeremiah and Jadarian in the field together in certain ways, whether that's putting Jeremiah outside, whether it's going with both guys in the backfield, whatever the case may be. That's the fun part. And, it's not going to be for 20 snaps a game unless you're just killing somebody with it.
Sure.
But just a wrinkle where a couple series a game, you come out some things, because when you do that, you've got something up your sleeve. So if they come out with those two things and they just run a couple normal plays, Jeremiah goes out there and just fakes a bubble and you're in inside zone, whatever. Trust me, they're setting you up for something. They got something coming. And that's what it's going to be is you really want to get teams on their heels. Mm-hmm. And thinking that, you've got this kind of orbit motion with Jeremiah and you're doing all these different things because you want them so paranoid about Jeremiah that they forget to watch Jadarian Price on the inside zone. And next thing you know, you got 3 guys running with Jeremiah on a jet sweep and Jadarian's running right through the A gap for a 50-yard touchdown. Right? I mean, it's things like that. That's what's fun about when you have weapons like that. But it can also, you can overdo it to where then you're not getting your other guys involved. You're overdoing it. So it really is a much tougher juggling act than I think people realize, but that's why you get paid over $2 million a year.
Right, exactly.
To figure that out.
Yep. But it's going to be fun to watch if it's done right and you got a good guy at the helm to get it right.
Yeah. And here's a very fair question from Mike Hanashowski. Can they block for each other? I think yes, to a degree, but with the read zone stuff, you don't necessarily need that as much.
Right. It's not like an I formation.
Yeah. But can they run like an outside zone where Jeremiah or Jadarian are like kind of getting out to the perimeter and looking for the force player, whether that's a safety or corner? Yeah, they can do that.
Sure.
Are you going to have one of them blocking? Like if you're running split flow zone with one of them blocking backside? No, you're not going to do that. Use that guy to run some sort of outside action where you're trying to I'm running inside zone with Jadarian. I've got my tight end blocking backside and I've got Jeremiah smoking outside. He's not a read. But I know I'm going to occupy that backside cut guy. So when Jadarian cuts it backside, that guy's running towards Jeremiah. So you don't always have to have them a second back blocking. That's when you have a let me be clear. When you have a quarterback like Riley Leonard, you don't need that. With a Sam Hartman, a Jack Cohn, a more traditional Jimmy Clausen, a Brady Quinn, you may have more of a need in certain run concepts you've got to secure that gap, because they're not worried about the threat of the quarterback. When you have the threat of the quarterback running, he's the one protecting the backside edge. Because if that guy crashes, I'm pulling it and I'm running.
Right.
Right. And now I've got Jeremiah on. We talked about it earlier. Like, Vince, I'd love to see something like this where, Jeremiah's to my right or Jeremiah's to my left and Jadarian's to my right. And I'm running read zone with Jadarian. Jeremiah is quickly going underneath. You may motion him around, and all of a sudden I'm pulling that thing on a read because that guy crashed. And now it's you got to either defend me on the run or I'm dumping that little under screen to Jadarian or Jeremiah. And now you're just like, good Lord, how do you defend all these guys? You can't.
Correct.
They're playmakers galore. And then all of a sudden we start bringing our safety down, our corner crashes, and Riley's pulling that thing and popping it over our head on a pop pass for a 50-yard touchdown where nobody's near that guy. If you're creative enough and you have the kind of weapons that I believe Notre Dame's going to have, you're going to create more of those opportunities.
Yep.
And that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. But you can also do that with Jordan Faison in the slot. You can do that with Jaden Greathouse in certain situations. You can do that with Chris Mitchell where they're the smoke guy. They're coming on some of that under stuff. So there's a lot of different things you can do. It's not just, hey, let's go 21 personnel, 40 snaps a game. Because then it's like, okay, now because it is limiting when you're two backs like that. So the more snaps you do it, the more tells you have, the easier it is for teams to defend. Like, okay, they're not going to run 4 verts as well out of this look as they're going to run it out of that look something like that. Or, Jeremiah is not going to run this whole route concept package that they have in the slot. They can only do this, this, and this in the slot. Right. So that's why you've got to be somewhat limiting with it in that regard. So we ended up getting some really good questions, man. Here's the last two. Last one, actually, I think.
Tommy, here we go. Which player at Notre Dame would you be most concerned about getting Wally pipped? And in case people don't understand that reference, that would be the Lou Gehrig Wally Pipp. Wally Pipp was the starting first baseman, got hurt. Lou Gehrig went in and literally never came out.
Yeah. Like he broke the record of consecutive games that
like literally never came out. Yes. Right.
Yeah.
100%.
That's a good question. Gosh, which Notre Dame player would you? I'm not concerned about anybody getting Wally pipped.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, because the whole thing is, why would I be worried about guy getting Wally pipped when the alternative is someone else being a Lou Gehrig, right? Like, I'm not concerned about it. Which Notre Dame players should be most concerned about getting Wally pipped? All right, what I would say is wide receivers, like veteran receivers. You don't want to let the freshmen, be too much in there.
I would say interior offensive line.
Yeah, that'd be a good one, Vince. Defensive end, like if you're Jordan Bataho, Junior Chilamaka, you may not want to give Logan Thomas, Josh Burnham, Bryce Young too many opportunities.
Yeah.
Veteran linebackers, you know what I mean? Like Jalen Sneed, Jack Kaiser, you don't want to be out there and then, now you've got to give Jaden Osbury all these reps. So you may not get that spot back, in my opinion.
Right.
And honestly, like, this is going to sound crazy, but Riley Leonard, if
he actually legitimately gets hurt.
Yes, and he misses a chunk of the season.
Yeah. He may not get his job back. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the last on my list and the most unlikely. Yeah. But that's how good, if the light goes on mid-season for CJ or Kenny Minchie and you give them a month to play, brother, you may not have that spot back when you get back, depending on how you were playing and how they're playing.
And I don't think that's really going out on a huge limb because there's a ton of talent in that quarterback room.
No, I don't think it's gonna. He'd have to be out for more than 2 games.
Agreed.
Right? I'm talking he misses 6 games, right? Correct. And then all of a sudden he's healthy to come back the last 2 games of the year. Like, let's wait and see how this last couple games go.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let me give you some extra rest. Make sure you come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be it. That would be a good one. That'd be another one.
Right.
So, those are the primary positions for me. Yeah. Jordan Clark and nickel. You don't want to miss too much time and give too many reps to Micah Bell. You don't ever want to be the guy that gives the fastest player on the team 2 weeks of practice without you being out there.
Sure.
That's the reality of it. But anyone that's ever talked to anyone that knows Jordan Clark knows that kid's not taking a day off unless you make him take a day off.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about that one. But that's a position you want to be in, but you want to be in a lot of positions where, like, dude, if you're a veteran, man, you better not. Do you really want to give Micah Gilbert the next week of reps? You sure about that? You really want to give Cam Williams or KK Smith or Jaden Greathouse all them reps? You sure about that? You know what I mean?
That's what makes good teams great. Right. Is if you're not up to snuff and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, there's a guy ready.
Here's one running back.
Yeah.
I know they're younger guys, but do you really want to give Keedron Young the next 2 weeks of reps with you sitting on the sideline? I don't think so.
But isn't that what we've always talked about as far as at the running back position? You can play as a young guy and be very successful.
And they're just really talented.
Yeah, right.
Keedron, for sure, really talented. And that's where the level of recruiting has taken such a big jump.
Right.
Is because in the past, it was like guy gets hurt, as soon as he comes back, you got that job because there's such a gap between the veterans and the younger guys. Now it's like, dude, the talent is like huge. And that makes you better. And we're not talking about a guy playing with a fractured ankle and just toughing it out. We're talking about I don't feel good. I'm sore. I need a day off. All right, cool. Take the day off. But, can't promise you're going to be the number 1 dude when we get back out there next week. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
So, that's how you learn the difference between are you hurt or are you injured, right?
Correct.
There's
a difference.
Expression. There's a difference.
Oh, maybe.
There's a difference.
I've had that talk with my kid before. Believe me. and my players for that matter.
Yep.
It's like, are you hurt or you're injured? What do you mean, coach?
Yeah.
Oh, let's
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. So, Vince, let's get out of here, man.
Hey, Matt D hooking us up here. Make sure you hit that like button, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss a live show. Sign up for the IB message board for the best intel in Notre Dame football. And it's a great community, folks. I'm telling you right now, the message board is a great community. It's not just all about intel, even though that is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. But it is, I mean, somebody put a post out there today and the community came calling. And I'm telling you, this is a community that looks after one another, takes care of one another, and it's like the family you never knew you needed. And so it's just different. It's just different. I'll say it. It's different. So hop over to boards.irishbreakdown.com. It is, financially, it's the best bargain you're going to get. I can tell you that right now. And for the best info. And no, I'm not biased. So there you go. But make sure you hit it. And tomorrow,
you are biased, but for good reason, because
fair enough.
Experience. It's like I'm biased towards my favorite pizza place. Why? Because I've tried it and it's the best pizza in town,
and it's really good.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So show tomorrow afternoon. What do you got on tap?
We'll go at 1:00 tomorrow. We're going to talk about whatever decision that Maddie Augustine is going to make. And then I'm going to do my next offseason preview feature. So we'll have some fun with that tomorrow.
All right. Yeah. And then IB Nation Sports Talk. We'll be back tomorrow evening with recruiting. I believe kicks off the show. And then, of course, rapid fire with Shaun and Jesse. So make sure you stay tuned because the best guys on the beat will be with you every day. So don't worry about that. All right. So for Brian, I'm Vince. We will talk to you next time on the Irish Breakdown podcast.